into public participation. So here at working session, you get 1 minute to give public comment. And then if you are joining us via Zoom, you will hit *9 to raise your hand, and then you'll hit *6 to unmute yourself when you've been called on. If you're here, we welcome you to the podium where you have your 60 seconds. And there's a nice little light indicator there that lets you know as your time is running out. If you'd like to speak more than 1 minute, please join us for our second meeting where you would get 3 minutes. Anybody want to give public comment?
We do have 2 hands raised on the Zoom call.
Okay.
First up is Margaret Shankler.
Okay, Margaret.
Hello, everybody. I just want to say thank you for having this session to explain the public safety budget. I've got a lot of questions, but one in particular has to do with the surplus that the sheriff's department might accrue and what happens to them. It looks like in 2014 that there was a special memo that allowed the sheriff's department to keep their surpluses or have them returned to them. And so I'm just wondering if that's still in effect. Why was the sheriff's department singled out for that? And for the years that this was in practice, how much surplus was retained over those years by the sheriff's department. I sent you all an email with links to these memos and so forth. So if you want to learn more about what I'm talking about, that should be either in your packet or your email. Thank you.
Thank you. Have anybody else?
Next up is M. Williams.
M. Williams.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm going to reserve most of my comments for the 3-minute session, but I did want to just provide, just in this 1 minute, for the 3-minute session, I'm going to be providing some clarity in regards to some things that I saw at the last meeting, the meeting before last. And I just want to make sure that that is clarified, that I will be providing that clarity within the 3 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else?
That is the last one on Zoom.
Last one on Zoom. Anybody in the room? Not seeing anybody? Okay, well, we are going to move on to report of the county administrator. No report. Okay, that's quick. Okay, we're going to move to a report of the Board of Commissioners Liaison.
No report.
Okay, moving on to our discussion items. So we have 2 today, and our first one is a report from the Washtenaw Health Plan. We're all very excited for this. I am. I'm sure. Good.
To get the technology set up.
All right. Hi there, I'm Jeremy Lapidus. I'm the Executive Director of the Washtenaw Health Plan. I've been the Executive Director for the last 2.5 years. Excited to be here today to give you all an overview of the Washtenaw Health Plan. The Washtenaw Health Plan is an independent 501c3 organization. Our mission is to help low-income individuals and uninsured individuals access high-quality healthcare and health-promoting services. Although we are our own independent nonprofit with our own board of directors, we are very closely aligned with the county and the Department of Public Health. We lease all of our employees from the Department of Public Health, and the county has been a big supporter for the Washtenaw Health Plan over the years. In fact, we consider ourselves to be the healthcare access arm of Washtenaw County's Public Health Department. So the goal of the presentation today is just to provide you an overview of the Washtenaw Health Plan, as well as give you some familiarity into the issues facing low-income individuals and uninsured individuals in Washtenaw County when they try to access healthcare. I thought the best way to do this was to walk you through a client story of the Washtenaw Health Plan of somebody we've helped. So I'll start by doing that. Then I'll talk a little bit about our impact model, I'll look at some data and talk about the broader community impact. And then I'll talk about the responses to the different community needs we've seen, and I'll end with the Washington Health Plan's finances. So I want to start with our client's story. ND is an 80-year-old woman who went to the emergency department with low back pain. She had diabetes and hypertension as well when she went to the emergency department. Just a little more information about her. She speaks very little English. She's very low income. She's an immigrant who has been in the country less than 5 years. And that's important because if you've been here less than 5 years, you're not eligible for Medicaid. When she went to the emergency department, she had no insurance, and there she was signed up for Medicaid anyways. And this is a mistake that we see often at the health plan. Insurance is really confusing. There's lots of difficult, complex policies, and lots of people make mistakes in this process. And the Washington Health Plan is here to help people fix those mistakes. So what actually ended up happening was ND was afraid to get follow-up care. She was afraid that using her health insurance would affect her immigration status. And this is something that we see at the Washington Health Plan commonly and in Washington County. It's actually an intentional effect of the anti-immigration rhetoric that we've seen over these last few years, as well as the constantly changing policies. We've been part of research that has showed the chilling effect that this has on the use of healthcare and public benefits. And the Washington Health Plan works to counteract this anti-immigration rhetoric and to make Washington County a welcoming place for immigrants and for everyone to access healthcare. So ND was afraid to get follow-up care. She wasn't getting her diabetes treated, she wasn't getting her hypertension treated, and she wasn't getting her low back pain looked at. So she thought she was probably not eligible for Medicaid, so she didn't want to use her insurance, and she tried to call the hospital that originally helped her. She tried to call the Medicaid office, MDHHS, and they were all unable to help her and help her figure out what was going on. Because we're located across the courtyard from DHS, and because we have a pretty good relationship with them, they said, why don't you walk over to the Washington Health Plan and see if they can help you? So she walked over to the Washington Health Plan, and through an interpreter, we were able to understand her fear of using her health insurance and how it might impact her immigration status. This is a part of what we do at the Washington Health Plan. We look at the whole person, and we look at every part of it, so we're making sure that they're getting the right health insurance, and also that they're actually going to use that health insurance. So we worked with her and we determined she was not actually eligible for Medicaid. And we closed her Medicaid account and got her on marketplace insurance with subsidies. That's also colloquially known as Obamacare. And we helped her make an appointment with a primary care office, and she got her medications for her diabetes, got her medications for high blood pressure. We helped her understand that using her health insurance, this health insurance, which she actually qualified for, would not impact her immigration status. And we also referred her to the Michigan Immigrants' Rights Coalition in case she had any issues with any immigration issues when she went to apply to become a US citizen. So the impact is ND now has insurance. She now has a primary care doctor with access to medication. She's financially protected should anything happen in the future if she needs health care. And also her insurance is paying providers in our community to take care of her. So there's a financial reimbursement for providers there. So now I want to walk you through our impact model a little bit more. So you've seen the client story. On the left side here, you can see we help people apply for health insurance and public benefits. We are a place where anyone can walk in and we will find you affordable health care coverage. Because the Washington Health Plan exists, we are one of the only counties in the state where you can really say that no matter who you are, you can come and get health care coverage. And we are the experts in health insurance and health care coverage, so that when other providers in the community don't know what to do, they turn to us. We also connect people to primary care as well as mental health services. We have a collaboration and partnership with Washington CMH through the Public Safety and Mental Health Millage. We also connect people to dental services. We're the administrators of the Washington County Dental Fund. And we help resolve other barriers to care. If somebody has an unpaid bill, they're not going to go to get medical care for something else that's bothering them, or if they can't get to the doctor's office, or if they're not sure if there's somebody who's going to be there who speaks their language. So we help address not only health insurance, but also these other issues which prevent people from getting health care. And we're accessible for walk-ins, for phone appointments. We're located in the 555 Towner building, right next to public health, across the way from Washington CMH. And we focus on the whole person getting the whole story, so we can make sure we're connecting with them to build relationships so that they trust us, and so we make sure we can actually get them the right health insurance. From an impact standpoint, at an individual level, we're getting more people in the county to have insurance, healthier residents, better financial stability. And then from a community perspective, we're bringing money into the county because healthcare providers are being reimbursed for their services that they're providing. And we're also working to improve the systems that provide healthcare for low-income individuals. We have a WHP advisory board, which meets and brings together healthcare providers that serve low-income individuals to talk about policy changes or other things we can do to improve healthcare services locally. So now I want to zoom out a little, and I want to talk about the number of folks that we serve in a year. We serve about 5,500 individuals in a year. About 2,400 of them are Washington Health Plan members. That means that they do not qualify for any other health insurance. And many of them are immigrants. And then about 3,500 individuals we help get on health insurance either through Medicaid or through Marketplace or Obamacare. Of the folks that are on the Washington Health Plan, in a year they have 4,500 medical visits, over 12,000 prescriptions, and almost 700 mental health visits. And all of these preventative healthcare services they would not have received had it not been for the Washington Health Plan. They were not eligible for any other service, and they may have just shown up in the emergency room. In addition to all that work we do on helping people with health insurance, we also help them navigate other services. So we helped 500 people navigate healthcare, and this could be helping them with appointments or helping them get transportation to a doctor's appointment. We helped over 200 people with billing or medical debt issues, and we helped over 700 people with issues they faced with the Department of Health and Human Services, which could be as simple sounding as changing your address, which is actually really, really hard to do. And it shouldn't be. We also helped over 450 people get on food assistance. And I also want to look at the financial impact that the Washington Health Plan has in the county. Health insurance has been shown to improve the health of residents, it protects them from medical debt, and it's even been shown to lift people out of poverty. And this is why I'm so passionate about what we do, because giving somebody health insurance is not just helping them once. It's helping them for the rest of their life while they have health insurance. It's helping them not worry about whether they're going to have to pay for medical care. They can get healthy, they can find a job and do other things. It helps people get out of poverty. And so we also tried to look at what is the financial impact that Washington Health Plan has in the county. This is really hard to estimate, but we looked at, based on the number of people that we get health insurance, this brings in about $10.5 million to providers in the county each year. And that's a lot of money. This also doesn't include the people that we help get on Medicaid, which contributes to the funding that goes directly to Washington County CMH. All right, so now I want to talk a little bit about the WHP's responsiveness to changing community needs. Because we are a place that anybody can walk into and get health care, we often see things before larger health systems or larger providers see them, so we're able to respond quicker. When the Affordable Care Act was rolled out, we helped transition many people to Medicaid. During COVID-19, we partnered with the Public Health Department to set up pop-up testing and vaccine clinics, mainly with the Latino community. And I believe you're going to be honoring Maria Militzer a little bit later today, and we worked closely with her. Recently, we've been helping to connect Afghan and Ukrainian refugees with healthcare. And right now, we're busy preparing for the end of the public health emergency. The public health emergency was declared in March of 2020. It was a federal declaration. And at that time, they said that people cannot lose Medicaid. And that's been continuing since March of 2020. We're not sure when it's going to end, but we think it's going to end pretty soon, maybe as soon as July. And what that means is that a lot of people are going to have to either renew and prove they're eligible for Medicaid again or transition to another insurance. We've currently got a request in and looking forward to the conversation with Administrator Deal tomorrow about some ARPA funds to help us with this effort. There were 53,000 people on Medicaid in March of 2020. In January of 2022, there's 67,000 now. So that's, you know, not quite a fifth of the county, but getting close to it. They're on Medicaid, and they're all going to have to either say that I'm still eligible for Medicaid, or they're going to have to transition to another insurance. And I just want to show you a map of what it looks like for who's on Medicaid in Washtenaw County. So you can see the larger map there, and then you can see the blow-ups of Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti. The darker shades of red are where the higher proportion of residents who are on Medicaid live. And you can see that on the east side of the county, in the Ypsilanti and Ypsilanti Township area, that's predominantly where the larger proportions of folks with Medicaid live. And this is not that surprising. These are the same folks that were hardest hit by COVID, disproportionately people of color. And in July of 2020, when this Board of Commissioners declared racism a public health crisis, this is what racism as a public health looks like. This is what systemic racism looks like. There are Black and Latino residents of our county are going to be kicked off of Medicaid. Thousands of people are going to lose insurance, and it's because of this bureaucratic system that we have that tries to keep people off of insurance. And this is what systemic racism looks like. It's not fancy, it's not in your face, but it is. We're going to have thousands of people disenrolled from Medicaid unless we're able to do something about it. And the Washington Health Plan is trying to do something about it. We're trying to get the word out to residents. We want to help as many people as possible either maintain their insurance or transition to new insurance that they're eligible for. And frankly, we're going to need help of everybody in the county, all the providers, and as much staff as we can get for it. Now I want to talk a little bit about the WHP's finances. We have $2.3 million in revenue each year. About 25% of that comes from Washtenaw County Indigent Care Funding. About 25% of that is contributions from health systems. About 30% comes from grants. Just to note, when I took over as executive director, we had 1 grant, and now we have 5 grants, so trying to grow that. And 20% comes from Medicaid match funding, which is federal funding we're able to leverage through our close partnership with the Public Health Department. We have $2.7 million in expenses. About half of that goes towards program staff who are helping people navigate healthcare issues and get on health insurance. About 33% goes towards paying for medical expenses for our members, and about 17% towards operating and county administration. And so you'll notice there's a deficit. We have about $400,000 deficit there. This deficit began when the Affordable Care Act was rolled out, when the Washington Health Plan's main source of funding, which was disproportionate share hospital funding, was removed because the state said, well, everybody's going to have Medicaid now, so we're not going to continue this funding. And at the time, the Washington Health Plan was preparing for this, and so built up a healthy fund balance or fund reserve. And in our conversations with our core partners, the county, public health, and the health systems, we said, we decided we would spend down the fund reserve until it was time to ask for more support. And so this is what our fund reserve looks like. In 2016, it hit the high of 7.2 million. And you can see that we've been lowering and spending our fund reserve And we've been trying to do this diligently and smartly. It's actually, we thought it would last until around 2019, but because of increased contributions from the health systems and our ability to leverage Medicaid match through the public health department, we've been able to make it last a little longer. But it's not going to last that much longer. And over the next couple of years, we want to have conversations with our core partners, with the county, with the two major health systems to figure out how to address the structural deficit. So I just want to say thanks to our core partners here, Washington County government, of course, Washington Public Health probably should have been on here, Michigan Medicine, and Trinity Health. And there's my contact info. Looking forward to our conversation.
All right, well, thank you. Excellent presentation. So I'm sure there are some questions. Commissioner Shink.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming and talking to us about all the things you do and how it intersects with poverty and intersects with the effort to reduce poverty for people in our county. Can you, if you haven't already, can you share the slide deck with us, please?
Yes, I believe they were shared.
Okay, sorry, I just maybe didn't notice. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'd be happy to resend also.
All right. Any other thoughts? Commissioner Morgan.
Thanks, Jeremy. No questions. I'm familiar with the program. It's great to hear the storyline approach of how somebody connects with the program and how it's helpful. I think this is an incredible program that we have in this community, and we should certainly continue to do whatever we can to be supportive and helpful. And I am very glad to hear that you are looking very, very closely at how do we make sure that folks are still taken care of as we kind of move beyond the pandemic. I think there are a lot of amazing things that were expanded and offered to individuals throughout the pandemic that, quite frankly, I wish would continue going forward. I think it's clear that that social safety net provided by state and federal support should continue, but as we know, that it will not happen. So whatever we need to do locally, I hope that you will stay in touch with us as the county to help make sure that we know where we can be more helpful or where we need to be helpful if we're not. So thank you very much for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan.
I think I saw Commissioner Labar's hand. Maybe you're just waving at me. I don't know.
Thank you, Chair. I agree the presentation was great. The work of the health plan is sadly necessary, but fantastic in execution. I guess you've covered all these issues. I worry continually about the status of folks who don't speak English as their first language or do not speak proficient English. And I worry particularly about what you mentioned in terms of issues of immigration status and so forth. I hope you will keep us in the loop in terms of the resources needed there with those issues in particular. That's something that is certainly the case in my district on the east side of Ann Arbor. Any other big issues that are floating out there that you think, I don't want to walk away from the meeting with the board having not just raised this point or said this thing? And if there's not, that's fine, but I want to make good use of your time.
Well, thank you. I think with regards to the health plan, I think the public health emergency is the big thing we're preparing for currently. So we have a short-term staffing need, but then as you saw with our deficit, we also have a long-term budgetary need. And I'm excited to talk to Administrator Dill tomorrow about our ARPA request, which is joint with OCED because they're in need of assistance or funds for utility assistance and rental assistance, which are a part of the expanded social safety net during COVID that are running out.
All right. Other thoughts or questions? While people are thinking, I'll throw one at you. So I'm a big fan of the mobile health RV, the health mobile. Have there been any conversations about the health plan riding along that and going and using that, or the MSSI once those are out to get people signed up?
Yeah, we have had conversations about that. Because of the pandemic, we haven't been able to enact that, but would certainly be very interested in doing that and seeing that happen.
Okay, so there's some sort of targeted strategy being developed.
Yeah, some sort of targeted strategy, you know, we would look at the map and, you know, think about where we could best be utilized.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and I think when we know more about the public health emergency, we're gonna be able to know how best to use that and what message to send out when we do that.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions, else? Doesn't look like it. Okay, well, Jeremy, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Looking forward to hearing more from you. All right, so we are having some technical issues with our live streams on Facebook, the Washtenaw County website, and on YouTube, so the trifecta there. So we understand you can hear us, but you can't see the video or the presentation. So we're working towards a solution, but in the meantime, if you join via the Zoom link, you'll be able to see the video as well as hear the audio. So the information on how to join the Zoom link or the Zoom call is on washtenaw.org/webcast, or you can look on our agenda. Okay. We are going to move into our second presentation for today. It's the 2022 budget discussion. You know, we've been doing this every working session. This time we're taking a look at public safety and justice.
Okay. Let me get the presentation up. There we go. Okay. So I thank you all for your time tonight as we go through a financial overview of the Public Safety and Justice Departments. We are looking at 2021 actuals, for the combination of fiscal years and how budgets change throughout the year. So, looking at all of public safety and justice, total revenues brought in were around $60 million. Over half of that was from the sheriff's office. And then looking at the types of revenue that are brought in, 35% is departmental revenue, which is represented by the fees, services, fines, forfeitures, and then other revenues within that. Federal, state, and local revenues, which would include the public safety and justice grants and local reimbursements, are 26%. And then taxes, which would be the sheriff's portion of the public safety and mental health millage, and then the EECS millage are 19%. And the last is 20% is transfers in, which is generally general fund appropriations to non-general fund programs. Switching to the expenditures, there were $111 million in expenditures. Again, the sheriff's office is the majority at 62.6 million. The trial court represents about 19.1 million, and then from there, the programs significantly decrease. Looking at the large cost centers as a whole, as we expect, 65% is spent on staff, 15% is on other programming and services, 14% is the cost allocation plan, and then there's a small portion of fleet and transfers out to other funds. Okay. Looking at the sheriff's department, I know there's a lot on here, so thank you, Andrew. And what we're doing is looking at how funds are used, what revenue is coming in by each program, and what the expenditures are broken out as. Police services is the largest program within the sheriff's office. They're funded, that yellow bar you see in the revenue is the police services revenue. And then the remaining is funded by general fund, other general fund revenues like general operating millage, and then some other small fines and fees. On the bottom right, you see the contract policing, which cost $16.6 million in 2021, and 13.1 million of it was covered by sheriff revenue, which left a gap of 3.4 million. That was basically covered by the public safety and mental health millage. Corrections is the next largest cost center. It's funded almost entirely by general fund, just the general fund revenues. And then the sheriff millage generated $8 million, which was recorded in the general fund. And then direct expenses in that org were 1.8 million, and then the rest covered other sheriff services. And then lastly, we have smaller programs from there with emergency services, administration, community corrections, etc. For the trial court, again, the total programs are around 19.3 million. The Friend of the Court, which is our child support division, is the largest single program of the trial court, and it's funded by grant revenues and general fund appropriation. The other large non-general fund program is the Child Care Fund, which is funded in a similar manner. Of the general fund programs, the trial court administration is the largest, and the remaining court programs are funded by court fees, a few small grants, and the rest is the general fund revenues, the generic other general fund revenues. Moving on to prosecuting attorney. Prosecuting attorney was about $7.2 million in 2021. The majority of these costs are staff providing criminal prosecution, conviction and integrity, and expungements, victim witness services in the general fund. And then the largest grants are, again, the child support division, and then our participation in SAKI, which is the sexual assault kit initiative. There is a small amount of grant funding, and they're working on other grants that we'll be seeing in the future. For district court, the total cost was 6.8 million. District court is almost entirely general fund. Department revenues covered approximately 23% of their expenditures, and a portion, or small amounts for the judges is also covered by state revenue, and then other general fund revenues cover the remaining portion of expenditures. Again, the expenditures are largely staff costs, and then the cost allocation plan, which is just the indirect services that support running a department in the county. For public defender, there are two primary programs. Total was 5.1 million. The two programs are indigent defense, which is covered by the MIDC grant, and then also juvenile defense, which is funded by general fund appropriation. Again, the majority of staff costs. Juvenile defense is about 12% of the total expenditures. And looking at children's services, this was 4.9 million. Grant revenues made up 2.7 million, of which, and then the general fund appropriation made up 2.1 million to provide juvenile detention and education services. The new day treatment program that was added in fiscal year 22 is not reflected here, but it is something else that's been invested in. And expenditures are 59%. Staff costs, programming and services are 21%, and CAP makes up 20% of the budget. Then lastly, there are 5 smaller agencies. The Enhanced Emergency Communication Services millage, which covers the Enhanced 911 communications and is funded by that millage. HIDA is the federal drug trafficking program, and the county largely acts as a fiduciary for that, but it does show up in our books. And then DHS is the child care fund placements, probation and law library, round out all of the public safety and justice departments. So, and then, I will get to questions in a second, but coming up next, the next meeting will be the Health and Human Services, and we'll be moving on. Due to the cancellation now, everything has been shifted back one working session, so we'll be to board priorities in August instead of July. With that, happy to answer any questions.
I expect there's questions. Maybe I expected wrong. Commissioner Shink.
So I don't really know all the details, but I have seen some articles, I guess, that anticipate that the fees, fines, and forfeitures, might not be a long-term funding option for the courts or for the sheriff's office because of their equitable, or if they're non-equitable impacts, are you thinking about how that might affect budgets going forward? Or is there technical support that we can access around that?
I mean, I think those discussions are always ongoing as we learn about the viability of that, and any changes in fee structures, et cetera, would always impact the budget. The courts have been having fee and revenue issues for a while now, and then they were furtherly exacerbated by COVID. So I think that is something we are hoping by looking thoroughly at revenues, we can, in the next, like in that budget process, we can get some more solid recommendations on keeping a balanced budget and having it be reasonable.
Thank you.
Other thoughts or questions? Commissioner Scott?
I have a lot of questions. Sorry.
It's fine. I'll do my best.
I know you will, and I appreciate it. On slide 1, when it talks about revenues by department, and I'm looking at like it says revenue, where does the money come from? And I've got the sheriff. It might have been in a slide down, but that 30.61 million, where does that revenue come from?
Yes. That 30.61, if you go to the sheriff's slide,
Yeah.
The bars that are sheriff's, I mean, the biggest percentage is sheriff services. That's probably half of that 30 million. And then it would be the federal, state, and local department revenues. I can, if it'd be helpful after the meeting, send a follow-up of how that 30.6 breaks down in all of those categories, because it does kind of depend on the individual program. But it is, I mean, there are some fines and forfeitures, but it's mostly local reimbursements and then a few grants.
Okay. Next question, if I go to slide 5, and I'm looking at, and you, I don't expect you have this answer, so this might be something you have to get back to me too on.
Okay.
How much is spent on criminal prosecution versus conviction integrity?
Yeah, so one of the ways we've set up things currently in the general fund is all the prosecutor services are lumped together. So we can look at staff costs and look at who is assigned to which and give that as an estimate. And I'd have to talk with the prosecutor's office and making sure we have those right assignments.
Yeah.
But currently, they're not recorded in different orgs where we can easily pull them out of the financial system. So, but we can definitely give you the staff assignments as a percentage.
Okay. And that might be it for my questions right now, but finding the answers to some of those things that I just mentioned would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you so much for the presentation too.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
There's a lot to fit into a small amount of time, so.
And I appreciate it. Thank you.
If you think you have other questions, we're running a little ahead of schedule, so let's let Commissioner Morgan go and feel free to jump back in.
Thank you, Chair. Those were good questions. Those were also questions that I was thinking about as well, just trying to figure out that 30 million. As I read through this, are we listing CAP? I know what CAP is, of course. It's our cost allocation plan, but how do we list that as an expenditure or revenue? It seems,
Yeah.
I just understand it on the slides because it.
Yeah. From the department perspective, CAP is always an expenditure. So
Okay.
in this presentation, it's talked about as an expenditure solely, just to keep things clean. I think when we get to general government, it'll get a little messier as we talk about how the revenue flows in. But
Okay, so we list it as an expenditure,
yes.
and that's another way of looking at that would just be sort of the cost of the infrastructure, the
Yeah.
overhead.
Buildings, IT, electricity,
Okay.
the desk.
I was thinking that was the case, but just wanted to make sure that I was understanding that correctly.
Yep.
And then the other question I had was looking at the contract policing, and I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. So it's showing that we spend about $16.5 million a year on contract policing,
Mhm.
but 13 million of it is paid for in fees from the jurisdictions,
Yes.
and then about just under 3.5 is kind of that gap that we cover with millage funds or otherwise?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep. And that was based on the actuals. Inside contract policing is also overtime reimbursements for special events. It's not solely PSU contracts, because those are also things we contract out. So it's not broken out in that way, but in general, the overtime reimbursements don't have the gap that PSUs have, so.
okay. Because I know one of the criticisms I've heard publicly about our budget is the amount of funds that go toward public safety in particular. And I think it's because it's really hard to explain that contract services, how much is there. It's also hard to compare to other counties in terms of what they spend, because we have this unique, pretty large amount of contract services, which I think is a positive thing for the community. I think it saves local governments revenue, it saves us. It's a positive thing for the county. And I think we get some pretty accountable policing services through the work countywide rather than each individual jurisdiction. But it is always really hard for me to explain. We don't really spend that much just in county policing.
Yes.
So this is helpful. I do think it's helpful breaking that out, and I appreciate you doing that. And I think the rest of my questions, I think, will be answered in terms of just understanding that 30 million that comes in as revenue. And then thinking about what we actually spend from county general fund.
Yeah, okay. I can add that to the analysis of the other county general fund dollars that are filling in those gaps.
I think that's all I have for now. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner LeBar.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Actually, Commissioner Morgan, your comments made me think of something to highlight. I think the last time that the community, the sheriff's office, and the Board of Commissioners, and I'm putting the emphasis on this group, that we went through a public metric process around contract costs was either 2011 or 2012. And the reason I bring that up is because, Commissioner Morgan, you just referenced essentially that $3 million gap.
Yeah.
And to some degree, back in 2017, when we were going forward with the public health, or excuse me, the mental health and public safety millage, maintaining the service provided to contracting jurisdictions at essentially the same rate was part of the selling point on that millage. And that $3 million gap there is to some degree what's able to cover it, because if we hadn't done that, we would have had to decrease services or increase costs to maintain the same service level. I think 5 years on now, 4.5 years on, it's easy to forget some of that context. I also think it'd be helpful to keep in mind as we look at the sheriff's office in particular, and maybe this is doable, the sheriff prior to Sheriff Clayton, that sheriff's office and the board did not always see eye to eye on spending issues to the point where there was litigation. I think in Sheriff Clayton's first term, he brought back something like $6 million into our general fund. And that's only relevant because if you look at the numbers like over a 15-year period, it's going to fluctuate a lot. The final point, and I think this is for the 9 of us really, is I have tried to grapple with how do we respond as a policy body to what has, I think, rightly happened in our society in terms of questioning about what is the proper role of policing across the board. And I think I said this before, but one of the nuances that gets missed in Michigan are the constitutionally mandated services. Spelling out what those are and to which degree we are meeting them, I think would be very useful for us going forward, because it's not as simple. And the other thing is, when we talk about the sheriff's budget in particular, I hope we'll keep in mind for Washtenaw County context, many of the diversionary services, the services like reentry programs and others, many of those things that are most innovative are discretionary services that we choose to do. We choose to do them because morally they're the right thing, and the sheriff's office has worked with other groups on lots of those things to do them the right way. But we also have that ability in part because of this overall budget structure that gets us there in the first place, i.e. the structural revenue and the contracting relationships. That isn't a question, that's a diatribe, forgive me. I just say this because there are a lot of moving parts in this budget. And this is great data, this is a great presentation. I do think we benefit though from stretching it back even 20 years. The data is there, not all the context, but I would benefit from that, Chair. So thank you, and thank you for letting me expand here.
It was a good diatribe. Before I go back to Commissioner Morgan, anybody that hasn't asked a question yet, we're going to repeat? Nope. Okay, Commissioner Morgan, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I think Commissioner Barr laid out one of the questions that's been on my mind as we go through this budget in particular, but all of the different pieces of the budget, is figuring out how do we assess the appropriate amount of money or the appropriate proportion of our county budget we should be spending in each different area. And I don't know how we answer that question. It's sort of a, here's what's always been done, and we don't really stray too far from that where it's at each year. And so I think that's a question as we think about more community engagement and feedback from the public. They're thinking, they're looking at our budget and saying, you spend too much or too little in this area or that area. And honestly, I don't know how to know if that's the case or not, because we don't really have a good comparison to other communities. And we don't really have a good breakdown because I don't know how to create that breakdown of like breaking out cost per type of service. So like, here's what's mandated, here's what we have to do, bare minimum, if we want to do only the minimum amount of service around public safety, for example. Here are the other really phenomenal things that we do in this community because we believe in social justice, we believe in restorative justice, and we want to invest in things that are community focused. How do you kind of explain that or tell that story or outline that as it relates particularly to the public safety department or public safety sheriff's office as a whole? I don't really know how to do that, but I want to throw that out there in case you think of something. This is your expertise, but this question of how do we kind of explain, here's what we spend because we have to, here's what we spend in these different particular service areas because we want to and because they're good, positive things.
Yeah, I definitely hear you. I don't have an answer on what the right proportions are, but I do know that one of the things we're working on in this year of budget preparation is working with each department. A few years back, we would do we called them mandated and discretionary services inventories, where departments listed, these are the services we provided. Are they mandated? If they are, what kind of mandate is it and how much do they cost? And we were talking about, I'm not sure the for some departments, services got very detailed and made it a little bit hard to really follow. But looking at the programs that are offered and are they mandated, and using policing is a really great example of what is the minimum that's required, what is contract policing, and what is it that we do because we think it benefits public safety because that's the level we feel comfortable at. And just knowing that, I guess, having more intentional information on the decisions that are made instead of it just being, well, this is how we budgeted it. We keep budgeting the same amounts without really looking at that. So that is something we're hoping to finish this year and bring to the board as for your information to review and talk about as we build into the next year's budget development.
Thank you. No, that's helpful. And I'm glad that you're thinking in that same way. Is there any way we can kind of benchmark or compare what we do to other similar communities? Is that possible to say, okay, here's generally what we do, here's generally what some other similarly sized counties or counties that are similar in different demographic or size categories?
Yes, possibly. We'd have to look at what that would look like. It's not something we've done in the past, but if we can figure out a way to do it in without being able to, or without impacting the ability to do all of the other things, I think if that would be beneficial, we can definitely look into it and get back to you on how we might be able to do it. I do think it's probably going to involve calling communities, identifying which communities. So I think it's a bigger undertaking than just doing it. But I think valuable work is worth doing. So
maybe it's not quite, we don't quite have the staff capacity for that at this point, but I understand the balance of those things. I'm just trying to think through, it just sort of seems like whatever we just say we want to spend more or less, and it's kind of a one-off here and there, as opposed to, are we doing, I just don't have a good comparison, and so that's what I think about. And
yeah,
it's,
I mean, definitely something to look into at least and see if there's I don't know if there's easy access to the data, but if there's a couple of communities we really think are comparable and would want to benchmark, we can definitely try and do some research on that. So
okay.
we can
thanks.
have more conversations about it though.
Yeah, these are, please hear those more as ideas, certainly more so than these are absolute things we have to do, but just trying to be able to communicate that message to the community of here's what we do and why, and here's how we compare to others, either positively or negatively, so that they have that kind of information. It's always something I've wondered, and I feel like looking at these presentations is probably the most I've really seen us dive into the nuts and bolts of each different funding area. And so I really, really appreciate it. This is very helpful to me and hopefully to all of us. So thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
Other thoughts or questions? Okay, well, people are thinking of one, I'll throw one to you. So along the lines, we've been having the conversation around pulling out some of the data and really making it clear where some of the money is going. Around the contract policing, is there a way for you to pull it out so we see how much we're subsidizing by contract? That's a tough one.
There are estimates we have because there are like a portion of the public safety contract is like a sergeant supervising, and so we estimate how that goes. I don't know when the most recent detailed breakdown of what a PSU costs is and how much we charge. That is something the sheriff's office does typically work on, and I would anticipate will be part of the discussion of the new PSU rate, but we can definitely request that and see what we can get around what that is. But it's mostly an estimate. That's okay.
Okay, I appreciate it if you could try to give us an estimate.
Sure.
All right, thank you. Anything else from anybody? Okay. Not seeing, sorry, Commissioner Sheep.
I just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate the graphs. I appreciate the conversation around it. It helps when I look at the budget, I can understand it, but it's not the same as when we really are seeing it with graphs where they're set off against each other and shows like what portion comes from where, what portion comes from where. So that's really helpful to me. And then just talking about it a little more in kind of a story format, it really is also helpful for me to understand the budget better. So
Excellent.
Thank you. I appreciate the effort you put into this.
Okay, thank you.
All right, last call, everybody. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Okay, have our technical difficulties been resolved? Are they able to see us? No, maybe, oh. Oh, okay, I'm gonna read this note at the end of the meeting. Oh, I'm just gonna pick this computer, thank you. All right, well, we're gonna move on to liaison reports. Anybody have a liaison report they'd like to give? No, not seeing any. Okay, I will give one now. So Youth Commission, they are continuing to work diligently on their presentation to us. That's coming up soon, and also all of their action projects. So look forward to that. We had a meeting recently, I think it was last Sunday. It was another really engaging meeting. And another piece about that, they are hosting a racial equity town hall on Sunday, May 15th from 2 to 4 at the Neutral Zone. You all probably already received an email about that, but if not, we'll make sure we get that to you too. It'd really be nice for everybody to meet again, the youth commissioners that are in your district. Okay, that's it for me for now. Items for current and future discussion? Oh, Commissioner Shink, sorry. Oh, Commissioner Beeman.
All right, thank you. I want to tell everybody that the Spark annual meeting is on May 17th, and we will be unveiling the strategic plan. And it's really exciting to have worked on it. And then also, of course, I can't divulge any details, but exciting to see the growth that Spark is making in its strategic planning.
Excellent. Commissioner Beeman.
Just saying I'm present.
Oh, Commissioner Beeman is present. I think Robert caught you when you walked in. Okay. Anybody else for liaison reports or wanting to mention that you are present? No. Okay. Items for current and future discussions. Anybody have any? No. Okay. Pending items. We have none. All right. Well, we're gonna adjourn. So before I ask for motion to adjourn, I'm gonna say to solve our streaming issues, we're gonna have to try to restart the whole system. So please rejoin the Zoom call at 7 p.m. for the Board of Commissioners meeting, and thank you for your patience. So now I'll look for a motion to adjourn. All right, all in favor? All right, we are adjourned.
Testing, testing. Testing, testing.
It helps if I unmute. Yes, I can hear you. Did you hear me, Andrew?
Yes, thank you, Candy.
Okay.
I'm going to call this meeting to order. Welcome, everybody, to the Board of Commissioners meeting for May 4th, 2022. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next, we will have the roll call.
Commissioner Beeman,
Present.
Commissioner Hodge,
Present.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Here.
Commissioner Labar,
Present.
Commissioner Maciejewski,
Present.
Commissioner Morgan,
Present.
Commissioner Sanders,
Present.
Commissioner Scott, Commissioner Schenk.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next, we will commence with public participation. Each person gets 3 minutes. We have a little light on the podium, and green says you have plenty of time. Yellow says it's almost time to finish, and red means please finish so that other people can have their turn. Please step forward and give everybody plenty of space. We can all take our turns. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi. Hello, my name is Teacher Barton and my current representative is C.M. Morgan. I'm a tax-paying property owner, native son of Washtenaw County. I'm an Eagle Scout, retired Peace Corps volunteer, former Red Cross instructor for the EMT and first aid responders, a former Big in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, an active member in wildlife rescue, a youth mentor, and a volunteer for various other community and nonprofit organizations. None of that matters when trying to get help or even a response from a public representative of Washtenaw County. Over 10 months ago, I requested the release of the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department's policies and procedures with reasonable exceptions for publicly accessible viewing. All but the 17 policies on the county website are deemed classified. I FOIA requested when those policies were posted on the county website. That resulted in the county stating there are no records. In this digital age, to state that there are no records for when something has been posted on a government website is a blatant lie or gross incompetency by the county employee who stated so. We live in the 21st century and these out-of-date excuses are no longer even feasible or legitimate, yet they are still being given out as valid reasons for lack of transparency. Through the limited communications with representatives in the county, it was confirmed the Washtenaw Sheriff himself has final say on the release of Washtenaw County Sheriff's Departments. The only communication I was able to establish with the sheriff was a short phone conversation where he directly stated he will not discuss this topic with me. I'm not allowed to call back, and he then disconnected the call. Cable, the Civilian Oversight Committee for Law Enforcement of Washtenaw County, failed to bring up my concerns in their November 2021 meeting, did not transfer over my unaddressed concern to the next meeting, and no longer responds to my request for communication in any capacity. My multiple month-long repeated attempts to establish communication with my county through the representatives on this council, the county administrator, corporate counsel, various county employees, Various members of the Sheriff's Department and multiple attempts to speak with the sheriff have not come to any fruition or resolution of this issue. The lack of communication from the various aspects of my county has now required me to address this issue in a public forum as the only viable means of ensured communication. Here's my concern. Since the sheriff has final say in denying the release of public documents, why is there no policy or requirement of transparency on the sheriff to justify his personal decisions to deny the release of public documents? I am now asking for the help of this representative body to take actions to have the policies and procedures of the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department be posted on the county website with reasonable exceptions for publicly accessible viewing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Libby Hunter, live in Ann Arbor. I'd like to speak in support of Teacher Barton, who just was up here, his effort to have the county sheriff's department's policies listed in full on the county website. And bravo to the Michigan State Police, who recently did post nearly all of their policies on the state website. I'd also like to speak in support of a possible effort by all of you, our commissioners, something you might consider for the future, brainstorming and figuring out a way to evaluate our sheriff and all future sheriffs in our county. As of now, this position in our county has no evaluation, as you know. And back to the list of policies, it's only democratic to have those policies on the website. In so many ways, it supports democracy, which I don't have to go into with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Greg Zminski, Lima Township. I just wanted to thank Ramon Patel for his 61 years of service for the county and 51 years as the equalization director, as this evening will be his final equalization report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Before I started speaking, I want to make sure I hand this to the clerk. Thank you. And there's an 8 there. I will give you number 9 in just a second. My name is Monica Ross Williams. I'm a resident of Ypsilanti Township. And I'm coming back to this meeting in regards to something that occurred at this meeting on April 6th. That was very disturbing to me to look and see. I'm going to start with the beginning part, is that the commissioners started their meeting at about 7:03. At that point in time, public comments proceeded after the Pledge of Allegiance. After that point in time, there were 3 commissioners that were eating and drinking. Number 1, Caroline Sanders, Commissioner Caroline Sanders was eating and drinking, proceeded to take off her mask at various times to do so. Number 2, Justin Hodge was drinking, proceeded to take off his mask to do so. Number 3, Katie Scott was eating and drinking and proceeded to take off her mask to do so, which was funny and disturbing. When Commissioner Jefferson started speaking during his speaking period, when he took off his mask in order to say that he needed to be heard better from before the public, that he was basically said he had a disorderly conduct, which I actually had to look up on the Michigan State Legislature site. I would suggest maybe each of the commissioners have a chance to do that as well. Also, in addition, I pulled up and I know this is not the Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners, but a Garden City, Honorable City Council and Mayor meeting. It's specifically, if you look down on the second page at the bottom, it talks about disorderly conduct at meetings. And I'm not going to read it, but you can read this part, which it goes straight to MCL 750.170, which corresponds with the Michigan Legislature. As far as I'm concerned, and I'm pretty sure most members of the public that attended that meeting, Commissioner Jefferson did not do anything other than speak to the public, which is his right to do as a commissioner. So to have him basically accused of a misdemeanor before this body was unacceptable. It was completely unacceptable, to be completely honest. Last time I checked, the only thing that could have been possibly close to a misdemeanor according to the state law is a person that's jostling or roughly crowding people unnecessary in a public place. I don't think speaking does that to the public. That's his job as a commissioner. We pay him $27,000 a year to address the public. We also pay all of you $27,000 a year to treat each commissioner with a level of respect. Hopefully that will be done from this point going forward.
Any other people wishing to make public comment?
Chair, we do have 3 in the Zoom meeting
Okay.
with their hands up.
Thank you.
First is Zach Fosler.
Welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I'm just calling in because you have a resolution before you tonight regarding community violence interruption. And I think it's very important. We have, I've been participating in this group that was convened by the mayor of Ypsilanti to help reduce incidents of gun violence in our community, specifically gun violence, really violence of all kinds, but we really need to reduce what we're seeing around gun violence. And within our properties, the Housing Commission, we're certainly no stranger to it. But I think what's really special about this approach is that, you know, what we're learning is very evidence-based, and what we're learning is that it's not just about enforcement to fix this problem, and it's certainly not just about community. It really is a combination of the two, and I think that the initiatives within this resolution really address those. And so I just want to express my support on behalf of the Ypsilanti Housing Commission, and myself as a Washtenaw County resident. And with that, that's all I got to say to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Harvey Summers.
Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Harvey Summers, and I live in Scioto Township in Commissioner District 1. The Washtenaw County Criminal Justice Collaborative Council, the CJCC, has canceled its last 6 meetings and has not met since May 27th, 2021, a year ago. The 2020 resolution establishing the CJCC set up quarterly meetings. In its initial January 2021 meeting, the CJCC actually voted to meet every other month. However, in 16 months, the CJCC has met only twice. Its initial January 2021 meeting for 45 minutes, and in May, a year ago, for 37 minutes. So I have to ask the question, is there a record showing that the multiple cancellations were done by CJCC majority vote as required by the Establishing Resolutions Article 8, Section A, Clause 2? Next, the May 2021 meeting minutes have never been posted to the CJCC website, which violates the November 2020 resolution. I understand these minutes have never been approved, but the draft minutes themselves shall be made public as per Section G of Article 8, which says proposed minutes shall be available for public inspection not more than 8 business days after each meeting. Now, Ms. Gordon from the CJCC has sent me my own copy, but how can we get the draft minutes available on the CJCC website for the public? And a very minor issue, on the CJCC website, the 2022 meetings, this year's meetings are all shown, 5 of the 6 are shown with a 2021 date. Be nice to get that corrected. In general, I want to thank the Commission for all the amazing work you're doing in so many areas, but I'm disappointed that the logical and even critical role that you apparently designed in your November 2020 resolution setting up the CJCC has not been fulfilled. I understand that much important progress is being made to make our county's criminal justice system more equitable, but without the CJCC playing the role you as commissioners envisioned in November 2020, are the developments underway in our county moving forward as effectively as they should be, in as coordinated a fashion as they should be, and without the ability of the public to hear the proceedings of the body that should be bringing that progress together to be reviewed in a single meeting every 2 months, how can the public know? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Rosemary Linares.
Welcome.
Hi, good evening. My name is Rosemary Linares, and on behalf of my husband and I, Damian Rivera, we would like to thank the county commissioners for the upcoming resolution on tonight's agenda, which is to issue a letter of support for our upcoming meat and poultry processing expansion grant. And we'll be submitting this to the USDA next week. Over the past 18 months, we've had $120,000 in grant funds that has supported a comprehensive feasibility study, business plan, preliminary facility design, and food safety plans to launch a new USDA-inspected multi-species slaughterhouse in Southeast Michigan. We live in Scioto Township in Washtenaw County, and we intend to launch this new facility within Washtenaw County. Though we've made a lot of progress over the last year and a half, we've been on this journey, honestly, for 8 years. It's been a long journey, and we're driven by our guiding principles and values for the human and animal welfare. So a people-centered facility design with practices and culture that support the workers, as well as the humane handling and animal welfare commitments that we have. Honesty and transparency, so trusting and collaborative relationships with farmers, distributors, and consumers. Also, our commitment to high quality products and packaging with unique flavor profiles, customized orders, and appealing packaging that promotes the traceability of products, as well as environmental stewardship. We want to honor our natural resources, and so we're committed to investing in regenerative practices and systems to conserve and preserve the environment. We're incredibly passionate about our local food system, and we recognize your passion and support. We are deeply grateful for your support. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
There is one more hand. Lois Allen Richardson.
Welcome.
Good afternoon or good evening to everyone. Yes, thank you for that welcome. I would just like to speak regarding the resolution regarding the violence intervention plan that has been very thoughtfully put together. I believe it was last July that we were at an event, and a young man had just been killed the day before, a couple of days before. And as I was at this event, I saw several people that worked from agencies that worked with youth. And I know that they were all working as hard as they could, but yet we were still having gun death after gun death. And I just approached them and asked if they would be willing to come together and let's work together rather than working each one in their own silo. And so we began to come together once a week and develop the plan that is before you tonight. I do believe that if we initiate this plan, we will see a drop in gun violence. And I believe that with those that we have working with us, that we might even see a complete ceasing of that. That is my prayer and my heart's desire, is that we would see an end to gun violence here in Washtenaw County. I want to thank, excuse me, I want to thank Community Director for the Sheriff's Department, Derek Jackson. And excuse me, I've been battling a horrific sore throat all day. So if my voice goes, that's the reason. For taking on the job of facilitating this group. Our group has grown probably from maybe 10 people to now, sometimes we have 24 that are part of our meeting. And we also have been bringing in young people that have in one way or other been affected by gun violence. We believe that this plan that is before you tonight will make a tremendous difference here in Washtenaw County. So I'm believing and asking you to, if you've already read it or as you go through it tonight, that certainly you will pass it so that we can begin to bring an end to the gun violence that we see repeatedly here. There was a young man killed today in the city of Ypsilanti around 11:15, and because of a gun. So we need to get guns off the street. We need to get our young people in a place where they put guns down and work out their differences in another way. And I believe that this resolution and the parts that are in there will help us do that. Thank you very much. I appreciate your consideration and have a wonderful meeting.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Commissioner follow-up to public participation. I just want to say thank you to everybody for speaking tonight. And then we'll move to Commissioner comments. I do have, Commissioner Jefferson?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This evening, I appreciate my colleague from the Ypsilanti Township area, former trustee of the Ypsilanti Township, Monica Ross Williams, for bringing the attention of the information that she brought to us and the incident on last meeting. It has been a trying incident that when I think about with others in this meeting, doing the things that was said as far as eating and drinking, and I'm singled out as taking my mask off for speaking because there was somebody in the audience that has a hearing impairment and has been writing me in emails, and also some others have wrote me in emails from the county who work in the county saying it's difficult to hear me speak. And even as I speak now, I've noticed the IT is doing the best they can to raise the volume so that I can be heard. So that is what it's all about. I mean, it's nothing that is a disorderly conduct, and therefore there is no reason for that to be said of my behavior. My behavior was appropriate. And when it comes to dealing with personal individuals within the community, I'm going to always respect what they need and try my best to give them that. And so, therefore, thank you for coming today. I guess the stopping the violence situation is occurred in my district within the last year or so. People within the district who are involved with those who know family members, community members that have been victims of gun violence or have even perpetrated gun violence have been doing their best to make sure that the pathway of those individuals when the incidents happen change their direction and make it an effort to become a more productive citizen, because the only thing that can really change a person is understanding that person. And so with the grassroots groups that are within our community, Supreme Felons, Women and Men Making Change, and there's others also that have been at the front line of dealing with these individuals and have been successful in giving some of these individuals opportunities to change their lives. And so I continually hear of violence, as Mayor Richardson said today. There was a shooting today, young man died. That is something that we can all get together as commissioners and find a way to deal with this public health crisis of our children being and our young adults being murdered on a regular basis. And I really appreciate that being brought to us today. The group that put it together, I thank you for doing that. And Mayor Richardson, thank you. That's it, man. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to note in regard to the mask conversation at the last meeting, there were no allegations of disorderly conduct under the penal code. The behavior that we were discussing was potentially a violation of our board rules that we all voted on. And so there was nothing criminal about Commissioner Jefferson's behavior in any way, shape, or form. The only thing was that it was a violation of our rules. And so I think we may need to have a discussion about whether eating and drinking in the meeting is as well. But I just wanted to set that to rest, that there were no allegations of any criminal behavior whatsoever at all. So thank you, everybody. Are there any other commissioner comments? Okay, then we are going to move on to, we have several special resolutions today of honor. The first one is honoring Mr. Jim Dries. And I'm going to pass that over to Commissioner Morgan, who is the liaison to the Department of Public Works, or I'm sorry, the Board of Public Works.
Thank you, Chair. So our Water Resources Commissioner, Evan Pratt, and I are very happy to present this. Commissioner Scott is the new liaison to Public Works, but I had the pleasure of serving with Jim for some time. And I will say, as a personal nature, we have a long history and friendship here. So I will hand it to Evan first and for some comments.
Yeah, thanks very much. If you hang on to that.
Yeah, I'll model it.
I like to speak with my hands. Jim's been a wonderful person to work with for many years. Jim has volunteered for 36 years on the county's Board of Public Works. He has seen a lot and has mentored me in a number of ways that I greatly appreciate. As many of you know, Jim was also an employee of the clerk's office for about 10 years or so, but he really has put in a lot of public service with the county. And I'd just like to give him 20 or 30 seconds. You can all read the plaque and what's there, and I'm not going to take your time up reading that out. Jim, you want to say a word or two?
Okay, thank you, Evan. I have a reputation of running short meetings, and I'm sympathetic with you about the lengthy agenda you have tonight, so I will keep it very short. First, I'd like to thank the members of the Board of Public Works that I've had the pleasure of serving with over the last 36 years, the staff of the Public Works Organization and the Water Resources Department, who I've had the pleasure of working with for a long time. For the individuals who've served as liaisons to the Board of Public Works, I hope we've given you some insights. And then to each of you as the Board of Public Works of Washtenaw County, who've given me the opportunity for so many years of public service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, we got a quick photo up.
Oh, yeah, all right.
Oh, I got it.
Oh, here, you're supposed to hold this.
Stand up.
I should have won the tie. I'm smiling.
All right, there you go. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you, that's wonderful. Next, we have a proclamation recognizing Maria Militzer and Mexicans on Michigan for receiving the Hometown Health Hero Award from the Michigan Public Health Week Partnership. And just to say, are you here? Yeah, I think you're coming up. Maria Militzer and Mexicans on Michigan have advocated for resources to ensure that the Latinx, oh, I'm sorry, Jimena, were you going to read it? Okay. To ensure that the Latinx community in Washtenaw County had access to COVID-19 vaccination, COVID-19 home test kits, and personal protective equipment. And they are continually partnered with the Washtenaw County Health Department to translate critical information and create materials in Spanish, and to have Spanish interpreters present at community clinics and manufactured home communities, restaurants, and places of worship in the areas most impacted by COVID-19. In addition to their usual programs and services to support the Latinx community in Washtenaw County, Maria Militzer and Mexicans on Michigan have created an extensive network of volunteers to contribute to the COVID-19 response efforts. And those efforts have resulted in over 3,000 Latinx and Spanish-speaking community members of Washtenaw County receiving at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine through jointly hosted community vaccination clinics. And there's no disparity in first dose vaccination rates among those community members in Washtenaw County. And Maria Militzer and Mexicans on Michigan have worked with the Washtenaw County Health Department to distribute over 6,500 KN95 masks and 1,500 over-the-counter COVID-19 tests to Latinx and Spanish-speaking community members in Washtenaw County in early 2022 during the Omicron surge. And at their April 22, 2022 meeting, the Washtenaw County Board of Health honored, appreciated, and congratulated Maria Militzer and Mexicans on Michigan for their service in receiving the 2022 Hometown Health Hero Award. And tonight we are doing the same. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for this recognition. I need to be completely transparent about who does the work and does the heavy lifting of putting the Latinx community in front of you, their needs, their challenges, their struggles. There is a group of people, the leadership in Mexiquenses in Michigan, who should be here in front of me. But I have the privilege of finishing my working hours earlier today, and they didn't. So they are the ones who should be here receiving this recognition and being right here in this specific precious place where perhaps, hopefully in the future, they'll have the opportunity to be.
Thank you. Yeah. Good evening, Commissioners. Maria wanted me to share who she's speaking about, who is so important, part of the team of Mexiquenses in Michigan who couldn't be here today. They include Nayeli Mena Martinez, Ana Trinidad, Arturo Cabrera, Consuelo Alvarez, Sonia Hernandez, Ellen Ward, and Adriana Salazar. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All of us together.
Thanks. Next, we have a proclamation recognizing Washtenaw County Environmental Health Program Administrator Jacqueline Bates for receiving the Samuel M. Stevenson Sanitarian of the Year Award. She's not here? She's on Zoom. Okay. Ms. Bates, the Washtenaw County Environmental Health Program Administrator, was honored with the Samuel M. Stevenson Sanitarian of the Year Award at the Michigan Environmental Health Association's 76th Annual Education Conference on March 23, 2022. Thank you. I'm glad we can see you now. The Samuel M. Stevenson Sanitarian of the Year Award is presented to recognize outstanding service to the Michigan Environmental Health Association and the environmental health profession within the last 3 years. Jacqueline Bates was promoted from sanitarian to program administrator in late 2019 after learning multiple environmental health programs. She quickly pivoted to support COVID-19 response work after just a few short months in her new program administrator role, including answering calls from the public, facilitating emergency environmental health response to homeowners who were left without water and failing septic systems, and putting new processes into place to continue to assist customers safely when stay-home orders were in place and supporting mass vaccination clinics. Jacqueline Bates championed a massive software change for the Environmental Health Division, which included participating in countless planning meetings, performing beta testing, and training staff. And she has learned the technicalities of the court system, working with lawyers for non-compliant sites and facilitating environmental health appeals through the Board of Health. So it is therefore proclaimed that so we are very grateful to your service, Ms. Bates, and we are congratulating you here tonight. Thank you. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you very much for the recognition. I would like to thank my manager and coworkers who nominated me. I give all credit to the great team that I work with and the very supportive department that I work for. Thank you very much again, and I promise that I'll keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you. Our Corporation Counsel is now going to introduce our new Assistant Corporation Counsel.
I didn't have my mask on, you would see a huge smile on my face right now because this position has been vacant for 805 days. So excited you're here. I'm thrilled to be able to introduce Michael Otten as our new Assistant Corporation Counsel. He is coming to us from the city of Detroit, doing litigation for the city. So he's been doing that for about 5 years. He is a local. He's a U of M undergrad. He went to Texas Tech for law school, and he is now a Washtenaw County resident in Commissioner Hodges' district. And him and his family, who he is with tonight, they operate a small farm as well. So in addition to being a lawyer, you're also a farmer. So I just wanted you to be able to say hi to him tonight and introduce him because I'm so thrilled he's finally here.
Thank you. It's a privilege and an honor to have been to get this position. This is a dream come true for me. I've said it time and time again. I wasn't looking for a job, but when this one popped up, I could not pass it up. So it's an honor to be before you tonight.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Next, Commissioner LeBar.
Chair, I was going to offer if you wanted to introduce his family, but congrats.
It's bedtime. Next, we are going to take, again, another item out of order, a resolution adopting policy recommendations to save lives by interrupting violence. And I believe Derek Jackson is going to give a presentation. There you are. Welcome.
Thank you for having us. I would ask the folks who are in the audience who are here to present with me to please come up to
Derek, just hang on 1 second, please. We have to adjust the volume. We're almost there.
I can also adjust it on my end if that helps at all.
We're good. Thank you.
So if I can ask the people who are going to present with me in the room to please join us at the podium. I just wanted to say that I woke up this morning feeling very ill, otherwise I'd be in the room. But this conversation was so important that we don't really have time to waste, and there was no way we were going to not have the discussion today. So we will be brief, but as Mayor Richardson said, a young person was murdered today. So that, if nothing else, should just speak to the urgency of the conversation we're going to have. Commissioner Richardson, you said it best. It's about me. It's not about us and the commissioners or about the sheriff's office, although many people see me and think I just am representing the sheriff's office all the time, which I love to do. But this work, I was fortunate enough to just help facilitate an amazing community group. And so with that, I will be quiet and I will turn it over to Charles Peterson Bay and Florence Roberson. And the people you will see standing behind them are community members who have in some way or another been impacted by violence and are here just to show solidarity. Charles?
How y'all doing? This is odd. Man, I never thought I'd be doing this. My name is Charles Peterson Bay. I'm here on behalf of the mayor's office and Derek. About a year ago, we all got together because of the violence that was going on in the neighborhoods. And I came by way of supreme felons. To give y'all the brief significance of the supreme felons, we basically was a group of guys that was in prison, and we came home. We decided that, hey, we ain't no war heroes. Our problems out here, these things out here that's going out here, we help create these things. So right now, since we've been home, we've been out here dealing with these young people, young brothers. We don't call them troublemakers, knuckleheads, none of that. They just uneducated and unloved. And it's a lot of violence. We don't have to sell this thing. I know we don't have, this is something that don't have to be sold. We all know that the community is bleeding right now. We got mothers that's losing their children right now. We lost one today. So supreme felons, our job is basically, we are the bridge between the law enforcement and the community. The law enforcement respect us through the sheriff department because of the work we've been doing in the community. The community respect us because since we've been home, the things we're doing in the community. You know what I'm saying? So we are that bridge. All we asking for is support to push this so we can do something about these youth in the community. And we need support. That's all we're looking for. We're not looking for nothing but the support. And the youth we need to educate them. They need mental health. You know, a lot of things, a lot of stuff that's underlying things that's going on out here that's not being spoke of, that we all know. And this is the result of it right here, you know? And as an ex-felon, supreme felon, I can't sleep with it because I realized that I was one of the ones that helped create this when I was that young. So the best way to reach them is the ones that have been that route. We know what they're going through. We know what it takes to get on the block and hold a pistol. We know what mentality you have to go through these things. So that we know we are the community's mechanics. So I'm gonna leave y'all with that. I'm gonna leave it brief. Thank y'all. Flo.
My name is Florence Roberson. I am the program coordinator for Sure Moms. I want to just give you some stats. I have 5 mothers whose houses between them have been shot up 16 times. I have 5 mothers who buried their sons. I thought one of the worst things in the world for me would be watching or standing near a mom who lost her son. It is a cry that you hear that you never unhear. This, I thought, was the worst thing. But the worst cry that I've ever heard was a mom who calls me and say, Florence, my son is going to get killed. Florence, my son is about to die because he's out there with guns and there's no help for him. I thought the cry of a mother's wailing at a casket was something. No, the cry of a mother who says to me, I know my son's doing wrong. I know my son is going to die on the streets. I need help. So when we can sit around and come to a place where we've got to decide that we've got to do prevention work, we've got to get these boys before they die. We've got to get the guns off the street. Because I'll tell you, and I'll leave you with this, there's nothing worse than a mother or grandmother's cry due to the death or knowing that one day it will be her son or grandson.
So as you can see, thank you, Charles, Florence, and for everyone who was there. I will be brief with just a couple of slides. I don't really need to say much more than that. The recommendations in the report speak for themselves, but the power of the group, the Community Violence Intervention Team that Mayor Richardson originally called together, is what you see before you today, of community members, elected leaders, folks who have perpetuated violence in the past, and people who have survived violence, all coming together to learn, to teach each other, and to develop the 14 recommendations that you see before you. Just really quick, I just want to offer 3 quick statistics. Exposure to firearm violence approximately doubles the probability that a youth will commit violence within 2 years. So the idea that a young person who's in close proximity to violence in Washtenaw County within 2 years is either a victim the second time or potentially a perpetrator the second time. This one really stands out to me, and I think it says a lot, and we see it in our everyday work. Hospitalization for violence-related injuries is recurrent, which means hospital readmission rates for subsequent assaults. So someone's physically, seriously assaulted, guns, stabbing, is as high as 44%, meaning that young person can come back. This is a staggering one. Homicides as high as 20%. What that tells us is if a young person goes into the hospital for gun violence, we know and we can predict the probability and likelihood that they will wind deceased or arrested and at a future date. If you ask yourself the question, what percentage of shootings in Washtenaw County are retaliatory in nature, we are upwards of 85%. You put all 3 of those data points together, and what that tells you is violence in Washtenaw County is predictable. Gun violence is predictable. And if it is predictable, that means it is preventable if we come together and do the right things. I'm gonna slide through this and just say, here are the 14 recommendations. This is the very first time that we are publicly talking about these recommendations, although we have spent many hours across the community having smaller conversations. So we thank the County Board of Commissioners for being our first official step, but we'll be doing this all across Washtenaw County. I'm just gonna highlight a couple of quick ones. And the ones in orange are the things that you, through the resolution, are already doing. Number 1, set a clear goal, commit to saving lives by stopping violence. It sounds like words, but when you make that a part of your primary existence and your goal, then you start to really think about funding in a different way. You start to think about the folks you hire in a different way. You start to really think differently about the nature of county business when stopping violence, gun violence in particular, is a focus area. Also in the resolution, number 2, and everyone who's done this work around the world, and I will say that we've had experts who have been doing this work and been successful come to our group and visit us, and they all talk about the very first thing you need to do is a problem analysis and an asset mapping. And I know in the resolution, you all are taking the step to ask the county administrator to do the research and potentially fund that work. Number 3 was really about creating a plan for engaging key people in places. And number 4 goes hand in hand with that, engaging those key people with empathy and accountability. Zach Foster said in public comment, this isn't about just law enforcement. It really is about both. There are enforcement things that have to happen. Anyone who's been successful at this work will tell you that. If someone shoots your child, there has to be accountability. There are guns on the street that are being shot. Yes, there has to be accountability. But as you heard in the comments from Florence and from Charles, there's so much more we can do before that young person ever picks up a gun. And then number 9, you all are also doing this in the resolution. You've already done this through the ARPA dollars by setting aside funding for new stakeholders and strategies. And I want to stress this piece. And I guess in some strange way, me not being in the room and those community members who are on the streets really doing the work is really important. Because setting aside those fundings for new stakeholders and strategies isn't just about our government systems getting those resources. It's about getting the money in the hands of the Florences, of the Charles, of the Marvins, of the Billies of the world who know how to do this work. And I have to talk about number 11, and then I promise we will wrap up. Number 11, because every young person we've talked to has highlighted this. The science and the young people say that we need a safe space for our young people. And if you talk to the young people, like we just did another session last week, they told us there's nothing for us to do. We need a community center in Eastern Washtenaw County. And they've been saying that for years. And the moms the Flow works with have been talking about that for years. Beyond just what the community is demanding and asking us to do, let's talk about the science. Any community that has solved and dealt with community violence that we've heard of and learned about and looked at the research, they have a safe physical space. So you have the science and the young people who are telling us we have to do that. And I just want to stress this piece because I've been working with young people in this community for years. I hope we don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I've asked at a couple recent meetings at local townships, how come we haven't gotten over the hump to actually build a community center? To me, this is such an important issue. It's not the magic wand, but I believe if we listen to our kids, they know exactly what they want and what they need. I want to just share one of the slides. So I'm going to just go through these. They're in your presentation. These are just some of the points I was going to highlight. But there's one slide in particular that I want to leave you with as we, sorry. So what you see before you on the screen are the list of people who have been murdered in Washtenaw County. I often talk about this book that I carry for the last 14 years since I've been at the sheriff's office. Every young person or person who's been killed by gun violence is in that book, and these names are represented on the screen. And there's a space up here. There was a new name to add today. We don't know all the details of what happened to that, but I want to leave you to sit with this as we open it up for any questions or anything that you would like to ask of us, because to me, this is really why we do this work and why we have no time to waste. Thank you. Any questions that we can ask briefly before we let everyone leave?
Hey, Mr. Jackson. Excuse me. Good evening, sir. I see your documentation, and it is very thorough and very thought out on this situation in which we have mothers and people in our community that are losing their children. There's names that I recognize, and there's also some of my family who have been the victim of gun violence. One of the things that I did back in last year is I asked the people who are here today, some of them, Mr. Billy Cole and a few others, to convene a group to talk about the violence. One of the things that we have to really respect, that is when people are released from prison, that they are people. They have lives, they have hearts, they have understanding of what goes on in the streets. It's not unfamiliar to me what goes on in the streets either. When I talk with them and we got to talking about becoming a 501c3, and they did that, and they have been moving and finding funding since then. I think this body here has a opportunity to bring about a Eastern County situation that gives our young men and young women a location to where they can feel safe. Talking with the grassroots groups, what the young men and women have right now are just studios where they go and they have the adults there to supervise them to make sure that they all stay safe. But that's not enough. I mean, we have an opportunity to bring insight to the gifts that each one of these young men and women have within them by increasing the opportunities to, pre-apprentice training, doing things that can lead them to a college education, to a career. Those type of things have been lost in our district, in our school district. So what I have seen and what I know works is not only the grassroots groups, but they are the front line, but our businesses, our schools, organizations within the city and within the township will benefit from less violence. Therefore, not only is government has an opportunity to provide funding for a better community, so does our local businesses. I've seen that model work in San Francisco. It's working real well, and it's led by ex-convicts. Their integrity, their moral way of living has given them the respect of the local businesses, the local government, to the point to where the building that they were leasing for the safe space where the kids have a place to go has now been given $400,000 from the city government to purchase the building because they would have been gentrified out if they didn't own the building. So we're looking at something that's stable and consistent and sustainable for the future for our children. I thank you for your expertise in this, Mr. Jackson, and all of these who came today. My heart goes out to your families. It's not easy to hear this almost every week of someone being a victim of violence. So thank you for this opportunity, and continue to do the work. And I believe that opportunity for this board is at hand. Thank you again.
Thank you, Commissioner LaBarre, and then Commissioner Sanders.
Thanks, Chair. Director Jackson, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for your work. Thank you most especially, though, to the community members, the mothers, the family members who are here today. I think sadly, the recommendations you propose are necessary, and that is a shame unto itself. But I think this model of developing it organically and in concert is to be emulated and celebrated. Director Jackson, though, the question I have is, can you expand just a little bit more on the discretionary nature of this funding? Because we talked at our working session about some of those differences in terms of mandated services and others. Can you tell us just a little bit more on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, as we try to rush through just for time's sake, I think this is a really big piece. The recommendations themselves are really meant in the report that we put the language specifically for individuals to buy into certain recommendations, for community organizations to buy in, for neighborhoods, and for government entities. So these are not mandates by any stretch of the imagination. These literally are what they say, just recommendations. And if we could do some of these things, we might be able to have some significant impact. The other part I'll say to that is there are things that we don't even know because they didn't come up in our group. So we're not pretending that our group has all the answers. What we tried to do was really put all of the information together into these recommendations to hopefully spur the conversation, because there are many more than are on our group who are out there doing the great work. So to your point, Commissioner, it is not mandated, it is discretionary. And we would hope that whether it's the county, a particular department at the county, or any other government entity or community organization or individual for that matter, that as you look at these recommendations and read through the data, you have your own ideas of how to embrace one or all 14 and put that into work.
Commissioner Hodge. For sake of time, respectfully, I say thank you to the community for coming to share this with us. I'm going to pose my question to Mr. Jackson, if you don't mind. Derek, would you be okay sharing with us who some of your key public officials have been in terms of supporting your concerns and initiatives from the beginning? So who would you say were sort of your foundational supports to be able to make this presentation to us today?
So I know you asked me, I'd be interested in the group's thoughts on this as well, but I would just say that, Mayor Richardson honestly called us together for the original conversation. And that's all it was, Commissioner Sanders. It was just a conversation because we were so devastated by 3 deaths of young people that happened in close proximity. And that conversation spun into what you see before you today. I know that Administrator Deal, Commissioner Sue Shink, and Commissioner Hodge, all 3 have been attending regularly. I also had some good conversations with Commissioner Jefferson. And so I think we also had City Council member Brian Jones-Chance from Ypsilanti City, who comes, and then Jimmy Wilson, who's a township trustee. So those are the elected and appointed officials who've been coming to these conversations.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hodge.
I want to thank everybody for coming out and for your ongoing work on this. I mean, it's so my fellow commissioners know this has been a lot of work since August of last year. Administrator Dill and Chair Shink and I and the group have been a part of working with this group on weekly meetings for 2 hours at a time. So when we look at these 14 recommendations, they didn't come about lightly. I mean, this has been a significant amount of work, and the work of the community has been incredible on this. I mean, I think this group has been one of the most effective groups I've ever worked with in terms of the amount of effort that's put into it and the quality of the content that's come out of it. This is really needed, and I'm glad that the county, and I'm hopeful that we will pass it, but I'm glad that the county will be the standard bearer for this and lead the way with hopefully the local governments in our county joining us in this effort here. And thank you again for coming.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Beaman.
For the sake of time, I'll also keep it brief. I just want to thank you for your time, for your advocacy. Your voices really do matter, and the time you've put into this is just, I'm sorry, I'm getting all teared up. It's just amazing. So thank you so much, and look forward to continuing this work.
Thank you. Since I'm chair, I get to go last. And thinking about what I want to say, I start crying, so I probably will say less than I'd like to say. But there's really nothing more precious than our young people's lives. And it's been an incredible honor for me to have been able to work with you, and I plan to continue working with you to do whatever we can to protect our young people's lives. And I'm not a person who often says that I love you to people, but I will say I love you because you are working so hard to do something that is difficult and important. And this group, everybody in this group has worked together through difficult times, difficult spaces, talking about just, incredibly difficult issues, always with respect, always with a focus on the goal, always with a focus on using data and research and information that comes from outside of our personal opinions to do the thing that we all agree needs to be done. And I'm just so incredibly grateful for your work. And I want to do whatever we can to support our young people, to support this work. So thank you so much for coming tonight. All right.
Commissioner, sorry, I was
Okay,
going to say
no,
thank
go
you.
ahead.
No, I was just going to say thank you. Just one last comment. I really want to stress how strong these mothers are, how amazing and caring and loving they are of their kids, and how smart and impactful these young people are. And so I know sometimes we think about gun violence and say, oh, those kids are trouble. It's much more than that. And you can look at Charles in the room with the share part of his story, and you can see the amazing men that they can grow up to be if we give them the opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Derek, for leading this work with such grace and intention and information. Okay, with that, to our liaison reports. Does anybody have any liaison reports? Okay, we're going to move on to special order of business. And Commissioner LaBarre is going to move that. Thank you.
I actually had just one brief liaison report, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm moving too quickly.
But then I will. Our last CMH meeting was canceled. We did not have a quorum. And part of the reason for that related to the ability of somebody to attend the meeting in person. So I just wanted to flag that because there are multiple reasons behind that, but it has been an issue. So heads up and please be aware on the CMH front.
Thank you. Any other liaison reports? All right, now moving to special order of business. I'm looking for someone to move that. One at a time, and we will vote on each one separately.
So move.
You have to move each one singularly.
Do you want me to?
Thank you.
Under special order of business, item A, which is the public hearing to receive comment on the proposed brownfield for 3874 Research Park Drive. That is for May 18th, 2022.
We have a second. Mr. Mulcahy, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Beeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson, Commissioner LaBarre,
Yes.
Commissioner Maciejewski,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Schenk.
Yes.
Item passed.
If I may, then, item 2, which is a resolution setting a public meeting to receive comment from the Washtenaw Urban County 2023 Annual Action Plan for May 18th, 2022.
We have a second? Support. Mr. Mulcahy, oh, any discussion? Sorry. Mr. Mulcahy, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson, Commissioner LaBarre,
Yes.
Commissioner Maciejewski,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Schenk,
Yes.
Commissioner Beeman.
Yes.
Item passed.
Then Chair, item 3, resolution setting a public hearing for May 18th, 2022. This is regarding receiving public comment on the proposed 2022 millage rate.
We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Mr. Mulcahy, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Jefferson, Commissioner LaBarre,
Yes.
Commissioner Maciejewski,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Schenk,
Yes.
Commissioner Beeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge.
Yes.
Item passed.
Thank you. Next, we have appointments, no appointments. Would somebody be so kind as to move the consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? Okay, we can vote on the consent agenda with a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against, please say nay. Motion carries. Report of the treasurer. Do we have one of those tonight? No. Item 9, resolutions. Could somebody please move the first reading resolutions? Or
Thank you, Chair. Move First reading starting with A, which is resolution to adopt a brownfield plan for 3874 Research Park Drive. Item B, which is a resolution to ratify the submission related to the National Fish and Wildlife Southeastern Michigan Resilience Fund and the Green Infrastructure in Ypsi Township from Water Resources Commissioners. C, which is approving the purchase and installation of recording system for Washtenaw County 14A District Court. D, which is a resolution authorizing the creation of a risk manager position from Corporation Counsel. Item E, which is a resolution reaffirming and adopting an updated deficit elimination plan for CMH for fiscal years 2022 and 2023. F, which is a resolution approving non-structural adjustments to the 2022 general fund budget. G, which is a resolution setting the 2022 millage rate at 6.8343 mills from finance.
Support.
Any discussion? Can we vote on items for the first reading on a voice vote? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any against, please say nay. Motion carries. Next, we have a presentation on the Washtenaw County audit results from Stephen Bland, CPA, principal from Rabin Robson. Sorry.
Good evening, and thank you for having me tonight. Certainly appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to walk through a few of the financial highlights here, but I will jump to the bottom line first and just let you know this was a very clean audit, a very good process, and I'm happy to always share positive results. There are about 24 reports that we actually have included in your packet. I'm only going to refer to a few quick highlights from 3 of those documents, but if you have questions on anything else, I'll be happy to try to address those for you. The 3 documents that are most important from my perspective are the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or ACFR, which is what's currently shown on the left side of the screen. That's the biggest document, almost 250 pages, and it really takes all of Washtenaw County's financial information and slices and dices it a variety of different ways. You get to see the details on a fund-by-fund basis. You get to see aggregate rolled-up information. You see pension history on the funded status of your plans. You see 10 years worth of data in statistical section. There's just a lot of great information in there. Probably no single person cares about all 250 pages, but whatever you're looking for, you'll find it in there. And just about all the separate standalone reports that I'm not going to go over today are incorporated into this larger document in one form or another. The second document, which is on the right-hand side of my screen that I want to draw your attention to, is the single audit report. And this document has a couple of different important pieces of information for the County Board of Commissioners. The first is the auditor's results as it relates to our evaluation of the county's internal control. Our primary job on the ACFR, on the left side of the screen, is to issue an opinion on whether the financial statements are fairly presented, meaning are the numbers that are contained in that report, all of which came from the county's management, are those numbers reliable, something that you as elected officials can use to inform your decisions. And we've issued a clean, unmodified report on those financial statements. But as part of doing that, we have to look also at the system behind the numbers, the way Washtenaw County accounts for its operations in order to inform our overall audit process. And the single audit report gives us an opportunity to share with you the results of that side of the audit, not just the numbers, but the system behind them. And finally, that single audit report also addresses the results of our test of the county's compliance with all of the strings that the feds like to attach whenever they provide grant resources. So the county received and expended a significant amount of grant money. That's true most years, but it's really been on the rise with all of the one-time COVID-related relief that has been funneled through the federal government. And so there are a lot of different federal programs that get a very close look each year through the single audit process. And this is our opportunity to share the results of that as well. So that's kind of the quick overview. The third document is just the final nickel and dime recommendations, and I'll get to that last. So in terms of highlights inside this 250-page report, as I said, there's something in here for everyone. I'm going to go ahead and jump all the way down, for those of you who are following in detail, to page 52, which is where we show the results of the general fund budget. So I've got the table of contents on the left. I've got page 52 on the right. I just want to point out that the County had approved a general fund budget of about $124 million of revenue at the beginning of the year, or just before the year began, rather. Over the course of the year, that was amended up to $128 million, and that's pretty much what was collected. On the expense side, the original budget called for spending up to $95, almost $96 million. That was ultimately amended up to allow expenditures up to $102 million. Actual costs came in under budget at about $92 million. So with revenues being on target and expenditures being under, the bottom line is the general fund increased by about $3 million. You had a budget that allowed for it to go down up to $10 million. And so that $3 million dropped into general fund balance. Your general fund balance is now at right around 37% of annual operations, which is well in compliance with your established policy, and those resources are available for you to appropriate in future budgetary cycles as you go through that process. We know these have been very atypical times for government finance. There have been a lot of shifts in available revenue. There have been new revenues that have become available and a lot of difficult decisions on how to deploy those resources. So having some flexibility and the ability to make well-reasoned and thoughtful decisions is certainly a positive for the county all the way around. Switching over then to the single audit report, I'm going to also jump well ahead. The table of contents shows the part I'm going to take you to is page 17, and that's sort of the overall summary of how the audit process went, and it's all good news. Here on page 17, we indicate an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements with no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies identified, either in internal control over financial reporting or in the county's administration of federal grants. So it's always hard to point you to what's not there, but a page that says there were no financial statement findings and a page that says there were no federal award findings, that's pretty good news to be able to share. Just so you know, we were actually paying attention. We do give you one other letter where we bring to your attention any small things that come our way over the course of the audit. And we have a few pages of boilerplate. And we came down to only one very, very minor recommendation. And frankly, I'm almost loath to share it, except the state makes us. We managed to find one bank reconciliation that was done accurately. It just wasn't done as early on the calendar as you would like. There were extenuating circumstances for that. And it ultimately did get done. It was just done after the deadline the Michigan Department of Treasury has set. And honestly, that's all I've got for you. It was really that clean of a process. And the fact that management worked so hard to account for your operations throughout the year, and that's all we're able to find, really speaks to the caliber of financial management you have at Washtenaw County. That was a lot of information really fast. I'm happy to give you more detail if there are areas you'd like to ask questions, or I can just get out of your hair and let you get on with your business.
Thank you. I'm going to check and see if any commissioners have questions. Commissioners? Nope. Thank you very much.
All right. We appreciate the opportunity to be of service.
Yes, thank you. Hope you have a good night. Now, Mr. Mulcahy, could you please ask Commissioner Jefferson about his votes for the 3 votes that he missed?
For special order of business number 1.
Yes.
Special order of business number 2.
Yes.
Special order of business number 3.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to the single reading resolutions. Is anyone willing to? Thank you. Commissioner LeVar?
Sure, we'll start with A, which is the approval of the creation of Human Services Program Aid to support barrier busters. B is approving the creation of grant status ARPA Weatherization Program Coordinator in OCED. That is time sensitive, I note. C, a resolution to approve substantial amendment to the 2019 annual Urban County Action Plan to include CARES allocations. D, a resolution to approve the budget amendment for Michigan State Housing Development Authority Rental Assistance Program. E, which is a resolution ratifying the signature of the county admin on the Michigan Enhancement Grant in the amount of $500,000. F, which is a resolution authorizing the grant from the Bank of America Foundation to support the Conviction, Integrity, and Expungement Unit within the Prosecutor's Office. G, which is accepting the Michigan DHHS grant for county jails COVID-19 testing reimbursements for $773,000. H was a resolution approving Washington County to be the custodian of the funds for the Recycling Quality Improvement Grant and application to action grant from Public Works. I, which is a resolution directing the Board of Public Works to undertake the North Lake Improvement Project in Dexter and Linden Townships. J, resolution directing the Board of Public Works to undertake the Lower Huron River Chain of Lakes Improvement Project for Dexter, Webster, Putnam, and Hamburg Townships. K, which is a resolution directing the Board of Public Works to undertake the Joslyn Lake Improvement Project for the Township of Linden. L, which is a resolution authorizing county administrator to sign, accept, and amend the budget for the Michigan Department of Environmental Great Lakes Energy Eagle 2022 Scrap Tire Cleanup Grant. M, which is a resolution authorizing the above midpoint hire of Michael Otten as Assistant Corp Counsel. N, which is a resolution ratifying electronic application for the Michigan State Court Administrative Office for the 2023 Michigan Drug Court Program. O, which is a resolution approving the 2022 Equalization Report. P, a resolution approving the amended bylaws of the Community Action Board in the office of OCED. Q, a resolution amending the bylaws of the Washtenaw County Commission on Aging. R, resolution adopting policy recommendations to save lives by interrupting violence. S, which is a resolution to support state action repealing Michigan's, quote, no-fault auto insurance reform 2019. T, which is a resolution calling on the Michigan legislature to support Michigan municipal and county clerks in their electoral responsibilities. U, a proclamation of appreciation for Jim Dries for his service to Washtenaw County Board of Public Works. V, a proclamation recognizing Maria Militzer and Mexicaness in Michigan for receiving the Hometown Health Hero Award from the Michigan Public Health Week Partnership. W, a proclamation recognizing Washtenaw County Environmental Health Program Jacqueline Bates for receiving the Stevenson Sanitation of the Year Award. Sanitarian of the Year Award. X, which is a resolution proclaiming May as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month and the May 9th through 16th week as Taiwanese American Heritage Week and celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Taiwanese American Association. Y, which is a resolution authorizing submission of the Damien Craft Meats application to USDA Meat and Poultry Processing. Z, which is a resolution instructing the county administrator to develop a report on options for affordable housing on the vacant surface parking lot, the corner of Ann and Main in Ann Arbor. And then I would include under the supplemental, and this is a first for a Corp Council, item AA, 2 A's, a resolution supporting 2% structural raise for members of ASME Local 3052, and the creation of the accretion issue. And then what I will dub AB, which is the, I believe, the abortion rights resolution that we were provided with, and I think that concludes the items, Chair.
Support. Does anybody wish to pull any of the items for separate consideration? Commissioner Scott.
Yes, I'd like to pull item AA.
Okay. Any other items? Okay. As part of this, so I guess I'll ask if there's any discussion, but say before we move on to discussion, that as part of this batch of resolutions, which was made longer because of the cancellation of our last meeting due to a serious security concern, Ramon Patel is going to give us an equalization report. And so I'd like to start with that report and then move on to further discussion. Okay, thank you. Welcome and thank you.
Madam Chair and members of the board. Today, I am proud to present for your review Washtenaw County's 64th Annual Equalization Report, which will be my 51st and final equalization report of my professional career. I'm grateful for the opportunity that Washtenaw County has given me. As an immigrant from India, my very first professional job in America was with the Washtenaw County. I have poured my whole life into service to this county, and I hope that I have been trustworthy administrator in the uniform and equitable equalization of the property value. Although it is tied to revenue, the goal of assessing and equalization is not to generate the more or fewer tax dollar. Instead, it is intended for accurately measure market value using the uniformity and equity in assessment. This is our statutory responsibility. Our duty is to fairness extend beyond the Washtenaw County government and to the other taxing units in receiving exactly their fair share in a tax dollar by means of the apportionment report, which will be presented in November. I urge our county not to lose sight of this guiding principle of equalization. A county that neglects the equalization will sacrifice the thorough and uniform measurement of the property value and thereby restricts its own tax base. Furthermore, an equalization department that allows itself to be influenced by other pressure will go against its own lawful responsibility. I would like to thank our present and past commissioners, administrators, county treasurers, county clerk, supervisors, assessors, board of review members, and associates in equalization office for their support. Now I'm going to present to you my recommendation for the 22 equalization. Now before I present to you equalization report, the report which you have in front of you, it is a condensed version of the report that has only totals. Actual equalization report, which goes to the state, it is 121 pages in it. That 121 pages is nothing but the calculations by city, by township, by classification of the property. So just let you know, this is the official copy I will be sending to the county clerk's office for the record. And this happens for every year. Since department started 64 years, I'm the second equalization director, and this is the process and procedure we always have used in our county. But if you like to see more detailed work, nothing but the data is always available in my office. So let me start with my recommendation to you. I'm recommending agriculture property be set at the 569 million, which is going to be an increase of 2.89%. Now, there is a difference between equalized value and taxable value. Board of Commissioners has a right to only equalized value. There is no equalization involved in a taxable value. Taxable value is merely a calculation. And that calculation goes directly to the local assessor and state. And that calculation been used for the Hadley fraction and all other things. But there is no approval required for the taxable value by the board, okay? Second recommendation is commercial value. I'm recommending 5.5 billion, which is 4.79% increase. Industrial, I'm recommending 612 million, which is a 5.22% increase. Residential, which has a highest percentage in our county, it is 18 billion. That increase about 762 million, 4.41% increase. Developmental is a transfer of the classes, so it has a loss on a 7.22. And personal property, we are recommending 1.2 billion this year. It is a 17 billion increase, about 1.4%. So total county equalized value I'm not talking of the state equalized value. I'm not talking the assessed value. This is the county equalized value. I'm reckoning 26 billion, 37 million, 710,199, which is increase of 4.31%. This is our county equalized value. 64 years ago, we started with a 1.5 million. Today, we have a 26 billion, and that's been between the two directors so far in a 64 years. 26 billion means 52 billion in a market value in our county. That is our county valuation. That does not include exempt property. This is only ad valorem tax. This is not the special tax, ad valorem tax only. And a special tax means there is no IFT, CFT, and all those included in it. And this is our responsibility as a board commissioner and equalization director to equalize the county. This report goes to state, and they're going to check this one. Then it becomes the state equalized value. If there is a problem, then it's come back to the county board of commissioner. Then county board of commissioner and equalization director decides what to do about it. And let me share some history on the past. It has happened in our county. We have gone to the tribunal. We have gone to the Court of Appeal. We have gone to the Michigan Supreme Court. It has taken the 3 years to resolve the problem on equalization. I see that sometime you got 10 minutes to do the equalization. I have seen equalization, Board of Commissioner has to come back for 3 continuous days to resolve the equalization. I'm just giving because it's the last year for me, I'm giving you the history behind it. Because right now, everything is working so good in our county with the local unit of government and us. So we are coordinating everything. So there is no dispute in the valuation. Otherwise, that could be a dispute between assessed value, total assessed value, and total county equalized value. That could be a dispute between the county equalized value and state equalized value. This is the checks and balance system. Okay? So let's move on to the second slide. This is the 10 years of history. You can see that our equalized value is going down a little bit. In the 2022, 4.3%. In the 21, it was 4.47, and before that, 6.53. Now, I expect that you're going to see some impact in the future year too. But that doesn't mean that your taxable value is going to go down. Those are the two different process and procedures. But our responsibility is only the county equalized value. Okay? Now, next slide is our new construction. You can see that our new construction has gone up 561 million this year. And that is the 50% of market value. If you double that, that is the market value. So you see from 21 to 22 has gone up quite a bit, our new construction in our county. Next slide is the percentage of the county total. Now you see that right now is a 68.98%. 69% of the properties are a residential property. Every year it increases. And the rest of the percentage are right there on the slide. You can see that. Now, look at the next slide. Average residential sales price. Now, look at the 10 years ago. 10 years ago, what? 175,872 and 178,998. Look at the today. 430,000 on an average sales price in 10 years. It's more than double. That is our county. In 10 years, that's double the prices. Now, this ends the equalization. Now, the rest of the information I have, because I have available here, and also it has label over that is a tentative, because this taxable value can always change. It depends on what happens to the state level. Okay? So that's why I have labeled the taxable value. Also, I get so many telephone calls because there are almost 78 units of government, they like to see their taxable value and equalized value, including our county. They are no different than other unit of government. They get the same telephone, we get the same telephone calls. So I'm trying to help everybody as much as I can so they can start preparing the budget. Our county has to update their budget. They don't have to start preparing the budget, but the rest of the unit of government, all our schools, all in Indian major school district, they all are looking for this information. And you will see tonight, it will go on our website and they all will be collecting and some of them may be watching tonight too. The next slide, you see the taxable value. Now, you notice that our equalized value went up 4.3% and our taxable value went up 5.80%. And sometimes people are going to be asked the question why that happened. It generally is lower than equalized value, isn't it? But we got the higher new construction this year. Okay, we got a lot of uncapping. That's why you see the reduction in our millage rate. So we are benefiting because of the higher taxable value. Plus also same time we are reducing the 2.5 cents on our general fund millages too for the county. Not even the county, but there are a lot of schools and everybody have a reduction in millage rate. Okay? The next slide is a board of review action. We have about 1,000 tax per appear in front of the board of review. 762 application being granted. We reduce our assessed value by 78 million. We reduce the taxable value by 58 million. This is the county-wide. Poverty exemption, 462, taxpayer applied for it. Poverty exemption granted, 455. Disabled veterans exemption also 383 and has been reduced taxable value by $42 million. Now next slide, you see that on the left-hand side is equalized value. Again, it's a county equalized value. And right-hand side is a taxable value. You can see the township by township and city by city, we have to distribute this to them. And tonight they're going to see all this figure. Generally, in the last 64 years, we do not release any figure unless until it is approved by this board. That is the rule. Okay? So because you can change anytime the county equalized value. You have a right to do that. Or any city township comes in front of you which has a legitimate request or anything like that, you can reduce and increase the equalized value. And that has happened in the past. That's why we do not release any information unless until it is approved by the board. Okay? And I hope it does not happen in the future too. Make sure that Board of Commissioners request for everybody not to release any information until it is approved by the board. Because you're going to have a mess in this county if you do that. Because you can see the data, how much data goes through. This year, total levy in this county, the first time, is going to be $1 billion. Now, if you wanted to have a smooth transition and smooth run out in this county, you have to be very, very strict about it. Otherwise, you're going to start all over again. So I'm going to show you further slides on this one, how important it is that you have to do by statutory deadline, everything. Okay? Now, the following slide, you show all the schools. All over 19 schools, they wanted to prepare their budget. So they just go ahead and prepare the budget, getting the information from. There is a second report which I have not brought in here, is the Hadley reduction fraction. Each and every governmental unit have a different reduction fraction, just like county has. Same thing with the community colleges. Same thing with the intermediate school district. You see all the villages, They have their own budget. All the authorities, all the libraries in our counties, these are the massive data and has to be distributed properly. The next slide is IFT and CFT. IFT and CFT means that commercial facility tax and industrial facility tax. These are not the ad valorem value. Okay, these are the spatial value. So we do collect on those valuation all the property tax. But this is on the top of the ad valorem property tax. Board of Commissioners are required to equalize the ad valorem property tax, not the special tax. Okay? DNR property. There are some DNR property in our county which has a $11.1 million, and we collect that too. The next is rehab property. We have only one property in Washington County, which is in Ypsilanti City, has a 1.4 million taxable value. And the next slide is CPI Consumer Price Index. That's the definition, which you can read that later on. Now, here the CPI number, how the CPI number been calculated. Now, I expect this CPI number may go higher next year from 1.33, probably more than 1.33. I don't know what the number is going to be because still we have to wait for the few numbers before we can say next year. And if the CPI number increases, there are chances that taxable value may increase too. And you see that difference this year on the taxable value because of the higher CPI number. Last year was only 2 point something. This year is a 3.3. Also, I want you to remember one thing, that CPI number, according to the Constitution, never going to be higher than 5%. So if the CPI number is 9%, don't expect that we're going to have a windfall here. Everybody has to cut down at the 5%. That is in a Constitution. So no matter how higher CPI goes, property tax never going to be higher than 5%. All right? The next slide is a county slide. This is the way we have calculated the county reduction fraction. So you can see that last year we levied 4.37. Now it's going to be 4.35. That is our millage. Now, if you folks decided to, well, Ramar, we don't like 4.35, we wanted to go back to the 4.37. It used to be before Proposal A, before 1994, you folks can raise the hand and you can go back to the 4.37. Now, there are so many raises, hand been raised. Now, you have to go to the voters to have that. Okay? That is the only restriction they have put. And there are some other restrictions. This is one of the restrictions they have put on a Proposal A. So if you wanted to go back and override the Headley or go, but it's not going to be override, still is going to be new millages. Okay, so that is the requirement. Once you get the reduction fraction, that's it. That's the way the final number is going to be. Now, next slide is that you can see the history since 1959. That was our first equalization. My boss, George Kashyap, was the first director, and he's the one who equalized first with the $562 million. That was first equalized value in our county. Now today is the $26 billion in Washington County. Okay. Next slide is just graph. You can see that 64 years of history. This is the gap between SCV and a taxable value. We used to levy on a taxable, we used to levy on equalized value and assessed value. Now we levy on a taxable value. That is the difference. So if you see the difference between those two, you see the 22.20%, that's the savings for the taxpayer in Washington County. Before 1964, we have to levy on equalized value. Now we levy on a taxable value. So we all our savings, our tax, about 22% tax savings on each and every household and commercial property in Washington County. Now, next slide, which I have shown here, is a county revenue. Generally, I have not shown here for each and every governmental unit, but this is the county revenue. You can see that we started last year with 19.1 billion. This year is 20.2, and we have to add all these other special tax in it. So finally, you can see that this year, our county revenue has went up 5.12% this year. 5.12%, which is a $4.3 million new revenue coming in. On the top, also, you see one more slide on the bottom. It says that in addition, the personal property reimbursement summary report will be filed with the state by May 31st. I have to file the report, which is a part of the equalization, which is the loss of the personal property, which you don't see here, but that's where we calculate all these losses, what we have in equalization report. I have to file that report to the state, and you will get close to $1 more million this year. $1 million. So total revenue, I expect this year is going to be around $5.3 million plus minus. That is our revenue this year. All clear? Now, next slide, which I showed, this is the last year's slide. And you see the last year we levy in this county 955 million. And I expect that this year is going to be more than $1 billion in a property tax in this county. Okay. So, Madam Chair, only thing I can say to you that we got $26 billion SEV, $1 billion in a property tax, and 200 and some villages in the Washington County. County Board of Commissioners has handed over to me responsibility in the past. I'm handing over back to you whatever I could done. That's all my report here. And if you have any question, I'll be glad to answer to you anything.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. You have been a trustworthy and honorable Equalization Department Director for many, many years, since 60 years. It's
51.
incredible. I'm sorry, 51?
51.
51. It's incredible. Thank you so much for your service. We appreciate your many years of doing this important work and appreciate your very comprehensive presentation tonight and wish you the best in your future endeavors. Does anybody have any questions? No, I think we don't. Thank you again so much.
I really appreciate it, Madam Chair. I have assisted about 90 commissioners so far, and 4 county treasurers, 3 county clerk, and many assessor and supervisors. And thing is that everything works very smooth if we have a trust between the local unit of government and a county. That is a must. You must have that, and leadership goes from your board. And we have maintained that in the past, and it has worked out really good. Otherwise, we had our fight in the 70s and 80s. You don't want to have a history repeated again, in my opinion. Everybody wanted to do the good job. And another report that I wanted to share with you, that there is a state law requires in last 3-4 years that every governmental unit in their assessing department has to meet the minimum requirement of the assessing. And I'm proud to report to you, with the cooperation with the equalization staff and all those things, every governmental units in Washington County had passed that audit. So all the assessing function in Washington County is doing very well. So you don't have to worry about missing the value or anything like that. and it has worked very good in our county. If you compare our county with other county, we are the #1 county in the state of Michigan. And I hope, Madam Chair and members of board, you appoint somebody in the future such a way that have a continued legacy for everything, because he's going to be $1 billion in a property tax revenue. That's all I can say to you. And thank you very much for everything what you have done for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going back to the long list of resolutions that were moved and seconded. One was pulled, AA was pulled for separate consideration. Is there any discussion on the other resolutions? Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. I will keep my comments brief and orderly here. For efficiency, I did want to comment on item E regarding the mental health deficit. I would like to see us, so this is just maybe a note for county admin, I'd like to see us explore whether we can pay off this debt or free up these structural dollars with non-structural dollars now that our budget is doing pretty well and CMH's budget appears to be doing pretty well, because we have structural dollars tied up in paying off the deficit in the tune of a couple $1 million a year. So something I'd like us to just take a look at if that makes sense. Certainly it might not make sense. Tell me if I'm wrong. So I want to make that note. The second is we have a resolution approving a non-structural adjustment. I'd like to have some more discussion on that. I'm fine moving it through through the first reading tonight, but it looks like we're putting non-structural dollars towards the compensation study. I'm very happy if we need to put more money toward the compensation study, but it seems like that would be something that would need structural dollars for ongoing cost. Again, noting it now, don't need to answer at this point, but something that I hope someone can follow up with me on between now and the next meeting. Third comment on the creation of the Barrier Busters position. I'm extremely pleased to see this, and thank you very much to County Admin and to OCED and to Peter on working on this and whoever else worked on it. I think this is incredibly important. It's something I raised in December, and Admin committed to bringing that back to us, and you have, and so I appreciate that and wanted to acknowledge that. The next item, I position for grant status, ARPA weatherization. I think that is phenomenal as well. That is a really important program. Weatherization is not always the most exciting thing in the world, but I think is so impactful because it speaks to so many of our priorities at the county around the environment, equity, and supporting lower income residents. So I think that is phenomenal as well. I think the last one here I have, is on the funds to support through CDBG to provide business support, business service and support for low to moderate income businesses. This sounds like a phenomenal item as well, and I would just want to learn more about that and figure out what we can do to highlight this and emphasize in the community afterwards, because I think this is an important thing to do to make sure that we're helping those businesses that perhaps were not assisted through our prior rounds of business funding. So those are all my thoughts. No questions or concerns. Usually all pretty happy comments about the many, many items that are on our agenda tonight. So thanks to everyone for what I'm sure was a heck of a lot of work. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay. We'll vote on those and then we'll consider the item that was pulled for separate resolution. And this will be a roll call vote.
Commissioner Labar,
Yes.
Commissioner Machieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Schink,
Yes.
Commissioner Beeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Yes.
Items passed.
Thank you. Next, we'll consider AA, the supplemental. Commissioner Scott?
Thank you, Chair. On this resolution, I just would like to make a motion to strike the last two sentences of the final, be it therefore resolved. So I'm moving to strike, if no resolution regarding positions can be found, the county and ASME 3052 agree to enter binding arbitration regarding these positions. Exempt from this arbitration are previously agreed upon positions not in the union.
Any support? We need to vote on the amendment.
Discussion and then vote.
Yes, first we have to discuss the amendment and then vote on the amendment, and then we can vote on the entire resolution. So this discussion is just around the amendment, and then, is there any discussion? Okay, we're ready for the, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Sanders?
So when you say only around the amendment, I just needed I had a question of clarity, because I don't assume that our residents understand or would understand what accretion means. I'd like just a definition for them to understand what that's about.
Thank you.
I'm happy to discuss what accretion means. There are, if in the resolution language, you can see that what the 3052 was certified for who was bargained for in that union. And accretion just means that you look at positions that have been created and decide if they need to kind of accrete, I think very visually. So accrete into the union because those positions meet that definition. And so that's kind of a simple way of describing what accretion is.
Okay, so just for clarity, we don't have any information that indicates that that particular number of employees asked to be included.
I don't have a particular number at all in this resolution. I think the union has thought that there are positions that can be accreted into the union, which is why there's this final, be it therefore resolved, that we have a committee that looks at the appropriateness of any positions to be in the union or not, based on the language in the 3052 contract as developed, who they were bargaining for in the 1970s.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so any more discussion on the amendment? Okay, seeing none, then Mr. Mulcahy, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Maciejewski,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Schenk,
Yes.
Commissioner Beeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Labar.
Yes.
Amendment passed.
Thank you. Now, is there any discussion on the amendment as amended, or I'm sorry, it's getting late, on the resolution as amended? Okay, seeing no discussion, Mr. Mulcahy, will you please call the roll on the resolution as amended?
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Schenk,
Yes.
Commissioner Beeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Labar,
Yes.
Commissioner Maciejewski.
Yes.
Amended item passed.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of claims. No, Commissioner Labar, did you move those? I can't remember anymore. It's been a while.
You know.
Okay.
I was 28 deep in the so I move approval of claims.
Any discussion? Okay. Mr. Mulcahy, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Sanders,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Schenk,
Yes.
Commissioner Beeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Labar,
Yes.
Commissioner Maciejewski,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan.
Yes.
Items passed.
Thank you. Next, we have a report from the county administrator on food insecurity map.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. Two items. They're both related. We'll try to be quick. I am pleased to introduce tonight to you a project that we have been working on with many of our community partners. It's called the Civic Innovation Project. And I'll read the definition, and it's kind of complicated. It is optimization of mixed mobility solutions towards improving fresh food access in Washtenaw County underserved regions. And that's a fancy definition for leveraging drones and robots to connect food and our robust food network in Washtenaw County with food insecure zones in our community. There are seven partners: the American Center for Mobility, Airspace Link, they operate drones, the University of Michigan, Aerotropolis, Food Gatherers, KiwiBots that creates robots, and Washtenaw County. I'm going to pause for a second to see if Commissioner Hodge, who is the lead from the county on this project, has anything to add.
Just want to say it's been a really exciting experience so far. Drones are certainly not my specialty, but to figure out how we can go about tackling food insecurity while making use of aerial drones and then robots, the potential for us to be able to do that's been really exciting. So I've been very happy to be able to be part of this and to help bring in additional partners. Really appreciate Administrator Dill's work, and then Peter getting pulled in at the last minute because there was a lot of paperwork had to get done as we focused on trying to get this grant application in. I'm hopeful that we'll get through the phase one of the grant, which will be $50,000. And then if we get that, we will then go for the $1 million grant to actually do the project. So stay tuned. I think it's really exciting stuff, and it would be a great tool for us to be able to get food into the areas of the county that need it most.
Thank you, Commissioner. The other part of the report this evening is to formally introduce Camilla Cormani from our office. I know that you all have seen her. She has been with us since the middle of February, and I'm going to introduce her now, but I just need to say that since she joined us as a temp in February, she's been phenomenal. We have given her several projects, and she's done them with a high degree of quality. And I think what you'll observe tonight is more of that quality. So I won't belabor the point. I'll just turn it over to her and say that we are so grateful to have you as a part of the team.
Thank you, Administrator Dill. Good evening, Commissioners. It is a pleasure to meet you all. For those that I have not introduced myself to yet, my name is Cammie. Camellia is my real name, but I go by Cammie for short. Recently, I was working with Administrator Dill, and I put together a map of Washtenaw County highlighting our opportunity index. I'll get it up right here for you all. Thank you, Andrew. So as you see here, here is a map of Washtenaw County and our opportunity index. The red zones, sorry about that, indicate the lower index. I have put together 3 distinguishable icons. You see the yellow icons here. If I can slowly zoom in. The yellow icons here I wanted to put together as, I am so sorry. It moves a little slow. Anyways, the yellow icons that I have up here, these are all types of possible places where you could get fresh produce, meat, or dairy. All farmers markets included. I have the big chain grocery stores, Myers, Kroger. I also wanted to include, it was important to me to include also the multicultural stores, such as the Hispanic stores, the Mediterranean stores, Asian stores, as well as the farmers markets. You know, we have Argus Farmer Shop. I even included the farmers market that comes out here in Carytown because I think it's important to get produce during that time. I wanted it to also have farms. Wasson Fruit Farm right here located. I'm so sorry, this is lagging. But I do have Wasson Fruit Farm right here. You could get fresh produce. And another important aspect that I wanted to highlight on this map was, for example, I will show right here, Linden Township, as you see, there are no grocery stores, no religious worshiping centers, no community centers. So I wanted to add these red icons that border Washtenaw County to show the possible food sources available outside of Linden Township. And I figured if I was doing Linden, I would just go around the entire border of Washtenaw County. As you see, Pinckney has bushes, that's close to some people potentially in Chelsea, Whitmore Lake, and also Ypsilanti. I wanted to emphasize the Belleville area, so some of our residents in Ypsilanti, if needed to, they could go to the possible food sources that we have available for them out there. Aside from that as well, we have 138 of these yellow icons. So like I said, farms, grocery stores, local markets, farmers markets, and then 19 red icons that border outside of the county. Next, I wanted to emphasize the community centers that we have. Again, my apologies for the Zoom. As you can see, we don't have many community centers. The only community centers that we have are located in Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor. So we have approximately 20 of them. They're in blue, they're kind of hidden behind everything else, but it's only in Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor. And lastly, as you can see, the purple icons, which there is a plethora of them. These are the religious worshiping centers. So aside from all types of churches, Orthodox, Baptist, Catholic, you name it, I have it. I also wanted to include Baha'i centers. I wanted to include mosques. I wanted to include temples and synagogues and places that anybody wanted to go worship to, they could. So I have, for example, right here, let's see. So, let's see. Like here, right here, this is a masjid. And then near that is another Baha'i center. Ypsilanti is heavily populated with churches all over, which I think is great. And from the churches, we have, not just churches, my apologies, religious worshiping centers, we have a total of 213, which I think is awesome. So in total, all of these icons that you see on this map right here, there's a total of 371, not counting the red icons that border, because they technically aren't a part of Washtenaw County. And I think that overall, with what Administrator Dill is working on, I think this information right here on the map could be a great beneficial help. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hodge and then Commissioner Sanders.
Just want to give a huge thank you to Cammie for all the work that went into this. I made the request that you make a map that had the grocery stores listed on it as part of what we were going to include in the application for the project. And then in the same time frame that we thought, okay, we're going to get a map that just has the grocery stores on it, we get this that has all these other really incredible data points that's I'm sure made our application a lot stronger. But to overlay it over the opportunity index, include places of worship, and everything else that went into it, just phenomenal work, and really grateful for the time that you put into it.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I'd love to have an opportunity for all of the commissioners to receive a copy of that.
Absolutely.
Because I think that it would allow us to possibly add in some areas or locations that may not be included that we are aware of in our own districts.
Yes, absolutely. That was one of the challenging.
Good work.
Oh, thank you. One of the challenging things about this map, actually, when I first started it, I thought I was finished after 2 days, and then I showed Diane, and she was like, "No, you're missing this, you're missing that." And I worked with Crystal Campbell, and she actually got in touch with someone in the city of Ypsilanti, and the mayor provided me with all verified churches that are in the city of Ypsilanti, which I thought was a great beneficial help. And from there, I realized I was missing a lot. It was a lot of diligent work and diligent time. And I think I did get a good majority, but there is probably a few things missing. But I would love to send you all an Excel sheet and the actual map itself for you all to look at and to add and modify if needed to.
If I could just add to what Cammie had said, Commissioner Saunders, what she will actually send you is the interactive map. So you'll be able to click on those icons and really drill down a lot better. We just have, you know, the technical issues presenting tonight, so.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Commissioner Morgan, I think, has got a comment.
Hi, I had just one question. When you look at the data, can you turn on and off some of the icons? So like, can you look at, for example, just the grocery stores? Because what I'm thinking about is where can you actually get food from? So I think the churches are helpful, and I think some of them do provide food, and they have food pantries and things like that. But I also think about my district. A lot of folks think downtown Ann Arbor, great, you have everything. You do have a lot of things, but an actual affordable grocery store is not necessarily one of them that's walkable. You can go to the People's Food Co-op, which I love, but it's not exactly as cheap as Kroger or Meijer or other places that I certainly choose to shop at more often because I need affordable food. And so that's one of the things I think was where can you actually get food from, and where can you get kind of more affordable food from?
So one thing that I think is important about this map actually is I think a lot of people seem to kind of forget the multicultural stores that we have, because a lot of these stores offer great produce for a very cheap price. And I think a lot of people could be intimidated at times to go to, for example, a Middle Eastern store to walk in because they might not think that they belong there. But all in all, if you walk in there, the produce that you need is there, the meat that you need is there, the dairy, whatever you want is there, and it's sold at a much cheaper price. There's another, I think, local grocery stores as well, ZZ's Produce on Packard. It's a family-owned store, and it's small and it's local. So I think they sell it at a cheaper price as well. I think a lot of the times people tend to look at the more high-end stores like Whole Foods, or like you said, like the People's Food Co-op, for example. You know, those are also great places to get food. But, you know, within that area, if we look at the map, I'm sure there's a local Asian grocery store nearby that offer the same thing at a much cheaper price. So I think this map is a good resource for also our citizens to look at. And I also have the addresses listed down as well, so they could go at their leisure and get the food.
That is really insightful. Thank you. Yeah, that's
you're
a
welcome.
really, really great point. And I want to be clear, I love the People's Food Co-op. It's just not
I
where I
know,
can
me
do
too.
all of my grocery shopping, or I will be much poorer. But so thank you very much. That is a really insightful point to look at these other types of stores that people might not think of to do some of their grocery shopping. So thank you.
Exactly.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Beaman.
Thank you. I appreciate all the work that went into this. One question I had, and I didn't see it because we kind of went east versus west, is are stores that aren't traditionally grocery stores included in the map? For example, in my district, we're more rural, and it's not always wanted, but the Dollar General moves in, and our Dollar Generals have expanded to have greater grocery sections, understanding that that's a need in our community. So were stores like that included, or more just specific?
So the hardest parts for me actually were the rural sections. Because of that, I added the farms, because I also added local bakeries that would sell fresh bread. You know, I would include all stores, even if, you know, I added berry farms. Would a berry farm have meat? No, probably not. But I think it's important to know to the public that you could get produce here if wanted. And they probably do have fresh dairy at the berry farms as well when you want to go in. Maybe, no. Like when you want to check, I don't know, naming the ones I've been to. But like I was saying though, I did not include the Dollar General or anything like that. But I think that's what's best about this is for you to look at it and you could add, because I know Andrew's also from Manchester. It's difficult to look through those areas. And I tried my hardest and my best, but I think that's what's best about the public, so they can also modify it. Thank you.
Commissioner Hodge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to circle back to Commissioner Morgan's question. Because part of the question, I think, was, are you able to toggle, Commissioner Morgan, you asked if you could toggle the different data points, and it's in the same GIS platform that we've used for other things. So yes, you can toggle the data points. All those other, when you look at what we just saw, those locations are on there because that's what we were looking for the project, and thinking about where, like, drop-off locations for the drones, for example. So you could easily turn some of those off. Awesome job again.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so
Commissioners.
much. That was really fascinating and important. And I'm excited to see those drones.
Yeah. So thank you, commissioners. you've heard so much about this work. I was so pleased to see the end product and see it real time. It's very, very interactive, and it gives us the ability to do much of what you guys are talking about. The last thing that I want to say is we often get questions about how are we really leveraging the opportunity index. Now we can point to one of the ways that we're using the opportunity index to drive change in our community. And I'm really excited to see this from beginning to end, where we take farm to table produce and move it to those areas that don't have grocery stores, et cetera, and use robots and drones to make that happen. Perhaps we're on the cusp of making food insecurity a thing of the past in Washtenaw County. So I just wanted to say thank you. Cammie, thank you so much for your work. We'll get this out to you and certainly take feedback on it, but I think it's an excellent tool for us to use. That concludes my report.
Next, there's report of the Chair of the Board of Commissioners. I just want to say that I'm grateful that this meeting has gone as well as it has. Thank you, everybody, for your role in making it go so well. And that is all I have for that. Item 12, items for current or future discussion. Commissioner Labar.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to say or ask apology from some of the department heads and office holders in terms of some of the confusion around the accretion issue these last few weeks. I feel like I personally, just from experience here at the board table, should have thought in a more analytical way about some of that, and just wanted that stated for the record. I know that they have, particular our elected office holders, the hard practical job of managing entities of county government, along with the additional burden, being responsive to the public as an elected official, and conversely, department heads have to make things work and don't have the leverage and authority, frankly, that elected officials do have. None of that was ill-intended, but I just wanted to note that. And Chair, I appreciate your work these last few days, particularly in terms of getting us all rowing in the same direction. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Labar. I second what you just said. Anyone else? Commissioner Hodge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to thank Commissioner Labar for moving a list of items that goes beyond the alphabet and doing it so well. That's all.
Ambianzi. Anyone else? Commissioner Beeman.
I just had a point of clarity. Did we vote on supplemental AB?
Yes.
Was that included? Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Scott.
I'll say something about supplemental AB, and because it just went in with the, ginormous list, and we didn't pull it for separate consideration, recognizing that it was a long night and not wanting to do a lot of talking about it. But I think it's an important resolution to signify where we stand as a county board of commissioners on Roe and what may happen in Michigan with. I like the way people refer to it as a zombie law, because that's certainly what it is coming towards us when the leaked decision about Roe v. Wade comes out. And one of the things it does is authorize our chair to sign on to different amicus briefs that would be presented to try to help preserve the right for reproductive freedoms for women and people who need those services here in Michigan. I feel fully confident that as a county, we will continue to try to think creatively about what we can do to help women be able to still access these services. And I know that I, for one, and I believe probably everybody on this board, is committed to making sure that we continue to help women no matter what happens with the Supreme Court decision coming in a few months. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott. To follow up on what you said, I have been talking with Michael Steinberg of the ACLU and University of Michigan Law School about potential avenues for having an impact in this area. So more to come. Anyone else?
Okay. All right. Next then, anything pending? No, nothing is pending. And
Oh, I have a motion for you, Chair.
do you? Well, Commissioner Scott, what would that motion be?
I have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Support.
Yay.